It takes thousands of hours to become an astronaut. Right, Nina?
Oh, I'm not an astronaut. I'm a design consultant at the Container Store.
But you explore space.
I help you find space with our Alpha Closet systems.
And you're an expert.
Pretty good at it.
And you use satellites to communicate.
I'm doing more virtual in-home closet designs, but I wouldn't say...
We salute you, astronaut Nina, for helping us find space.
You're welcome.
Hurry to the Container Store to save 30% on all Alpha systems. At the Container Store, where space comes from.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Welcome back, everybody, to Wrestling Omakase. We're here today to do our New Japan Pro Wrestling year in review, and we have a real all-star panel here. I don't say that lightly here. I think this is like a real all-star panel. We people loved the episode last year that we did, the New Japan 2019 year in review, and somehow we've added to it here because we've got Joe, Joel, and Damon all back on, but also we have Rich Craich here. Also from the Voice Wrestling Flagship. Yes, you can go first, Rich, since you weren't on last year. Welcome.
Hello. Hi. Yes, I'm here. Voice Wrestling Flagship Podcast. Patreon.com/Voice Wrestling. Get my plugs out of the way early.
You plugged your Patreon before I plugged mine, Rich. But how have you been doing, Rich?
Pretty good. It's been a busy day at a busy time. I think most importantly to your listeners, the New Japan ebook we have coming up. So a lot of work has been centered around that, but it looks like it's going to be pretty damn good this year. Pretty excited about it this year, but voicewrestling.com for all the details on that, and hopefully the last week of December, first few days of January, we're a little ahead of the game, so hopefully we can do it last week of December. But yeah, a lot of work going into that. Really cool stuff. If anybody's downloaded the past editions, it'll be very similar to those, but obviously with new additions and really just, I think, a different feel to the book this year, which we're going to talk about over the course of these next 2 hours or whatever of the last times we've been doing this book, it's almost been like 100% just like people like a love letter to New Japan Pro Wrestling in a given year, and this year it's definitely a little bit more balanced of there's people that really still love it and obviously pour their hearts out about how much they love it, and then also the flip side, you got that too, and one of the cool things as well with this year's book, something that we're pretty happy to finally be able to announce, is John Moxley is doing the foreword for our book as well. So we got it, it's in the can, he sent it to us, so that's pretty exciting. That's a big get for us, so we're pretty excited about that one.
So I should mention, we're recording this on Saturday, December 19th. It's not going to come out until probably Saturday the 26th. It'll be the episode for that week. So I don't know if that means the book will already be out or about to come out.
Probably not. I mean, that would be amazing. I would come on here and say, yes, that is awesome. The book is done before that. But good chance you're going to have to wait another few days before the book to come out. But voicesofwrestling.com, we'll have links all over the page when it's up and ready. So.
There you go. Okay. Also here, back from last year, the other co-host of Voice Wrestling's flagship podcast, Mr. Joe Lanza. Hi, Joe.
How you guys doing? No mid-level podcasters on this show. All-star panel, like you noted. So, very excited for this.
So now that begets the follow-up question: who is the mid-level podcaster of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network, Joe?
Oh man, you're really putting me on the spot here. I've got you're asking me to bury someone, and I think I'm disliked enough at this point by the masses to start turning on the people on the podcast network. So I'm just going to decline the answer. I'm going to abstain from that question.
Abstain. That's fair. Also back from the Super J Cast, Mr. Damon McDonald. Hi, Damon.
Hi, everyone. What a way to spend a Saturday night. We already talked about New Jersey shopping malls and old man ailments, and we had to warm me up a little bit. I just can't go in cold and just start rocking and rolling. We gotta have a conversation. So we know this is going to be a good show. So I was looking forward to it all week. So I got nothing to plug. I mean, Joel would know. Oh, did I spoil something? Joel would have more of an idea of what we have, because I have no idea what we even have.
See, now, if I wouldn't call that a spoiler, because it's like if I invited the three of you and then not Joel, it would be a little weird.
Joel's sitting home, getting podcasts, and he's like, "What the what? I wasn't even invited, son of a bitch."
So yeah, Joel's here too. Hi, Joel.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to plug the 2020 Super J-Cast Year-End Awards, because the ballot for that has just gone live. So you can find that pinned to our Twitter page at the Super J-Cast. So please get your votes in for that. And yeah, another little plug for the New Japan Yearbook. I hear there's a pretty good Hiromu versus Despy piece in there. So keep your eyes peeled for that one.
He's milking that content for he's going to milk that for at least another 2 months.
There you go.
I've got to get paid. Come on.
Gotta get paid. Speaking of getting paid, I also want to plug, of course, the Wrestling Omakase Patreon. I'm not going to give the whole long spiel because we have a million things to cover and limited time to do it, but I will say it's at patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase. I guess I can reveal this now because this is going up on the 26th. It will be the only place this year to get the Omakase Wrestle Kingdom live shows, the live reaction shows that we did on YouTube last year. It will be the only place to get it this time will be on the Patreon. So you sign up for $5, you'll get access to that for January. You'll also get access to the Tokyo Dome series we're doing right now, covering every single Tokyo Dome main event, not just New Japan, not just 1-4. I just did Stan Hansen and Hulk Hogan, which was something. I did a UWF main event that was under 10 minutes and yet somehow still clipped, which was I didn't really understand that, but I did that one too. So there's a lot of cool stuff up on the Patreon right now. Of course, everything else we've done all year, the Okada Tanahashi series, the Naito Ishii series, we covered every single match in order. So all that stuff, if you're listening now and you are into New Japan's history, I think you'll enjoy that, or just Puro history and Puro Today too, because we did a lot of tournament coverage this year too. So patreon.com/Wrestling Omakase, $5 gets you all that great content. Okay, let's get into the thing we're all here to talk about today. So getting the four of you on, it was requested multiple times by different people to me, and the general request seemed to go along the lines of, there has been a split here in how the some of the personalities on the podcasting network that talk about New Japan have felt about New Japan this year. I think that's a fair thing to say. With the Rich and Joe have been a little more negative. Damon and Joel and I have been a little more positive. And I think the idea was, to try to get everybody together and talk that out and see if we can't come to any conclusions or, agree to disagree, I guess, on what New Japan's 2020 looked like. So with that in mind, the way we're going to format this episode is a little different from the past New Japan year reviews we've done, where instead of going like show by show by show, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set a bunch of topics. I'm going to ask them a bunch of questions here. I'll give my thoughts too, of course, and we'll kind of do it more as like a general debate, much more wide open. So topic number one, I think. This should be easily the most divisive one of all, so let's start off with that right away. Evil, the King of Darkness. What did hit that title win over Naito? Was it a failure? Was it a success? Was it overblown in the West? Was it maybe an even bigger deal than some of us have said it was? I'll start with you, Rich, because I feel like you really hated the Evil title win and the title reign and everything he's been doing since that heel turn. So I guess, what are your general thoughts on Evil, and why do you think it was a negative for New Japan's year?
Yeah, it's honestly not, and I try to preface this. I try to let people know because people, a lot of people will say the same thing that you do. It's like, oh, you hated in the evil reign, you hate evil, you hate all that sort of stuff, and it's not necessarily in a vacuum. I have no issues whatsoever, with Evil's reign and Evil's however he won and all that sort of stuff. I mean, there's obviously issues that I have and things I could probably break down if I really wanted to. But to me, what it more than anything, it represented just New Japan not feeling like the company that I had watched over the last decade or so, like watched intently over the last decade and had gone back and watched retro stuff. And it's not only the Evil thing. It's not only that reign. It's really ever since they came back from their shutdown and came back for the New Japan Cup. It just never, to me, when throughout that entire tournament, it never felt like New Japan. It was just kind of weird. It was clunky, and it makes sense. Like almost every wrestling company in the world went through some weird period this year where it was like they didn't feel right. I mean, WWE was doing shows in front of chairs. Like they literally set up chairs in an empty arena before they got it. A lot of companies just struggled with how the hell do we do this empty arena? How do we do low capacity? How do we do no capacity? How do we handle crowds or whatnot? So you get New Japan out of the gates and they come in with a pretty, the New Japan Cup it was just weird. It was just like so different to the senses because it was kind of quiet and it didn't feel like the effort was all the way there with a lot of the wrestlers, or maybe wrestlers kind of getting back on under their feet and feeling like they're ready and back, and because they 2-3 months off is quite a long time for wrestling wrestlers to be off. So it's a combination of that, of like this kind of weird different New Japan that I didn't really, was just like, I don't know, this is kind of strange and kind of weird, but hey, I'll give them a chance, I'll see what happens. And then it all kind of culminates with Evil getting that win and the way he got the win via interferences and via Dick Togo and via all that sort of stuff. And it kind of all came crashing down at once. It was like, holy shit, like we had this, pandemic, we have COVID, we have this New Japan Cup that's kind of weird and different. And then, now here's like Evil is your champion and he's in the Bullet Club and he turned out, it was just like a lot all at once. You're just kind of like, oh boy, this is quite a lot. And to me, it was the first time, at least in the decade, that I've really, really followed this company like extensively and covered watched every show and discussed every show and did all that sort of stuff. For the first time, to me, it felt like the champion wasn't one of the top guys in the company. To me, the first time the champion wasn't a guy that I would consider one of the top workers in the company. And that was an adjustment period. Like, you got a little bit of that. You dipped your toes a little bit in the water with, a Jay White type. But for the most part, between, Kenny and Naito and Okada and Tanahashi and those guys, it was like it had always sort of been like the top tier guys. And I think that was just a big adjustment as well. It wasn't necessarily because of Evil. It was just that it just seemed unique and different from what New Japan had done. And it really wasn't, initially what I wanted, but I was like, hey, you know what? Let's see. It was an interesting angle. The music was cool. I didn't mind him joining the Bullet Club. And then just the more the matches went on and the more the angles went on and the more things went on, it never connected with me. It's just not who I wanted as the top of the company. It's not what I wanted in the top of the company. And I didn't really think the bell-to-bell matches were very good. I didn't love the amount of interferences. I didn't love matches, ending via interferences and run-ins and all that sort of stuff. But just more than anything, like I said, it didn't feel like the New Japan I had really, really invested in over the last decade. And that is really my biggest issue. Not personally with Evil, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like personal against Evil. It just felt very different to me, and to me it was uncomfortable. The difference was uncomfortable to me. It just wasn't really what I wanted out of that company, and really what I had gotten over the last decade.
Rich, I do want to enter one counterfactual statement into the record. You did title an episode of the flagship "Evil Stinks." Just want to say that for the record.
Oh, I mean, he does. I'm not gonna. He doesn't always stink, but Evil Champion kind of stinks. So,
Joe, do you want to add anything to Rich's thing there on Evil before I get to maybe the counter viewpoint?
I mean, somebody like Evil on top is just not what I want out of New Japan. But I sort of had an epiphany watching the Super J Cup. I'm done fighting this. New Japan is now a heel heat promotion. It's what it is. And you just have to come to terms with it. I'm done being angry at New Japan for not being something that I want it to be, but it just isn't. But the reality is it's just not that. It's just not. That's not what it is. Years ago, Rich and I exploded on a podcast and nearly stopped covering New Japan when Yujiro Takahashi helped AJ Styles win the IWGP title, because that's not the IWGP title. For the most part, throughout history, has been held in a certain reverence. It was kept away from that sort of thing. And aside from that title change and a few other minor instances over the last few years, that largely has been the case. The Okada-Tanahashi series didn't, those were just a series of clean wrestling matches with the story being who was better. This sort of deal with a heel cheating champion on top for that title, it offends me. But I've now accepted that this is what New Japan is now. I don't know if I would term it a failure, because I base those things on business. That's just, to me, it's business first, and then whatever I personally think. You have to do what's best for business in the pro wrestling business. And because we don't have full crowds and we're dealing with this pandemic, I don't know whether or not Evil failed on top. I have no clue. None of us do. So I can't deem it a failure. It's not personally satisfying to me. I hated the matches. I thought for the most part they all stunk because it's not what I want out of the top of the card in New Japan. I could deal with it down card. It doesn't bother me there. But when it involves the IWGP title, I can get that sort of thing in a million other wrestling companies. And New Japan generally would stay away from that. But now I've just come to terms that this is what this company is, and they're only going to lean harder into it. And that's why the El Phantasmo thing in Super J-Cup didn't bother me as much as it may have a few months ago or when he did it last year, because that's just what this company is now. It's a heel heat promotion with a bunch of guys in charge who pop for Memphis tapes. And they added Dick Togo to the mix, and he's got a voice now, and he has the same mindset when it comes to pro wrestling. And I don't know, I'm done ranting and raving about it. This is what they are. And I think it's more productive to analyze them from that perspective than continuing to analyze them like they're, 1991 All Japan or Rings or, modern Noah or something. It's not what they are.
Okay.
So, and it's not what I want them to be. But that's like tough shit for Joe Lanza. I mean, they're going to do what they do. And the jury's out. When crowds come back, we'll see if it's a successful strategy.
There's a couple points I want to make before I turn over to Joel and Damon. I'm glad you brought up AJ winning the title from Okada with Yujiro there. And you guys did hate that at the time. That's very true. The AJ, to me, the Evil reign, it actually is very similar to the AJ's reigns because there wasn't just interference when AJ won that title. I mean, you have Kenny Omega getting up on the apron famously during the AJ Ibushi match at Sumo Hall. You had the entire Bullet Club trying to interfere in the match where AJ finally lost the title to Okada before Red Shoes famously told him to suck it and send him away. The interference in AJ's title matches was a major thing that happened in almost every single one of his title matches. So we have had a champion, I think, with that interference. It's been a while. And, so I do think people maybe haven't seen it in a while. I mean, I don't remember if Jay White had Gedo interfere when he beat Tanahashi. I think he might have, but then he won clean, right? If anybody remembers. But but either way, it's been a while for a real run-in heavy title reign, I think. So I think that Kenny obviously did not do that. Naito, Naito won the title via interference actually, and they did interfere in the Ishii title match too. But so it has happened. But it's been rare for the past 3.5 Okada, Tanahashi,
I think it's because there were so many Evil matches in a row where it was the same layout for every match. It's just you're waiting around for Dick Togo to hop up on the apron with the wire.
I get that, right?
And it was just too much over and over. But that's how this company books. They pound things into your brain. That's been the pattern for a decade. So I get it. They're establishing the Evil character, so they did it over. But it was just so jarring to see it in the main events. The same match structure, which was a very different match structure for their title matches than they've been doing for the most part. Just over and over the same match, and it's just and I don't think that the clap crowds helped. I mean, because then it all comes across heatless,
right?
Because nobody can react. So there's a million things working against it, and just none of it, worked for me. I mean, for my personal sensibilities and what I want out of pro wrestling, I don't want that out of my IWGP title in New Japan. If it's Dragon Gate, they have their own established canon for years and years and years. It's once you establish what you are, okay, and what your universe is, then that's what I'm able to accept in your. And I just feel like New Japan is leaning more into being a heel heat promotion. If that's the case, I'll adjust and I'll have to live with it. Am I going to be as invested as I was? Probably not, if I'm being honest. But that's a me problem. If it works for their business, then they should lean into it.
The other thing I was going to say too is I do think like interference in the undercard, to me, that's definitely not anything new. I mean, there's basically been one unit at a time that's designated as the heel bullshit unit that has the run-ins. I mean,
and to be fair, that has gotten on my nerves, and I've complained about that over the years as well. But it's like, to me, it was never a major issue, because when it's Yoshinobu Kanemaru working, curtain jerking and spitting whiskey in people's face, you can live with it. It's just it's far more jarring when it's at the top of the card. Listen, Rich was the first person in the universe tired of the Bullet Club. He turned on the Bullet Club like 6 months into the thing. So it's not as if we're being inconsistent. That I don't think anyone would accuse us of.
It's fair.
And I think one of the things too, and then we'll obviously let Joel and Damon, give their side. But I think another thing that really hits as well, and this will vary depending on each person and their what they want out of what they want out of wrestling, what they want out of New Japan. But you mentioned AJ Styles, and yeah, I think that's a decent comp, and I forgot to mention him earlier. But quickly into that reign, after bearing and after being like, oh my God, AJ Styles, what are we doing? Is then he got in the ring and I thought had incredible matches. I thought, despite whatever you want to say about the Bullet Club or whatever, AJ was bringing it every single night, and Okada brought it, and Kenny to me brought it, and Tanahashi brought it, and I don't think Evil brought it. Like that's one of the biggest issues too. Is I can deal with I can deal with interference, I can deal with some sort of stuff like that if the first 25 minutes of the match I thought were engaging or interesting or fun or good, and I didn't really think Evil was any of those. And that probably parts apart in it too, is it's like you're sitting here watching these matches that I really some of them hit, I liked a lot, and some I really, really disliked, but that it was just a hit over the head. You're like, all right, I'm not loving this match. And then it ends in a way that you really don't like. And it's like, well, why? I don't like anything about this. And that's, the consistent over the last decade has been, I think, the New Japan Pro Wrestling, main event scene, I thought has been really, really, really good, with some, very, very few exceptions over the last, decade plus. And this was kind of a real big, again, like I said, it's just a different approach to doing wrestling than they have done recently. And whether it's good or bad, I mean, that's up for interpretation, but it's certainly different. I don't think anybody would argue that it's a completely different approach to how they've gone about it.
So the other thing I guess I'm going to say before I turn it over to Joel and Damon, I do think that it's overstated a little bit, like, this idea that we're going to have heel interference in every main event, and we're never going to have, the classic New Japan title matches again. I mean, we have Naito Ibushi on 1-4, which is going to be a gigantic match, obviously, for both titles, and there will be no interference.
After.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, right. Oh, no, sorry. Oh, I thought you were... never mind.
I'm just saying there's still going to be those matches. There's not... Even when AJ Styles was doing bullshit, there was still also Okada Tanahashi at the same time, right? I mean, I don't think you're suddenly going to have nothing...
I don't know.
I don't think you're going to... You have Naito Ibushi on 1-4. I mean, that is one of the two biggest matches of the weekend, and that's going to be a completely clean wrestling match that they're building up as just, here's this great wrestling match between two rivals. So I don't think we're totally in an era where we're going to get nothing but heel bullshit. I guess that's my other statement on it.
Well, I don't think it's going to be every single significant match, but I do see them leaning into it more than ever. This is 2 Super J Cups in a row, which were built around putting heat on a heel. It happened to be the same guy, but this is the Super J Cup. I mean, this used to be, and this is actually 3 Super J Cups in a row if you want to throw in the disastrous Taichi year, where they ruined the whole tournament with Taichi's stuff. So and that used to be a tournament held in reverence, from the mid '90s and everything. And they do things their own way, and I understand that. And you can't live in the past, but it seems to me that it's permeating deeper, and from things I've been told and everything else, that they plan on leaning into this even more because they feel like heel heat is the way to go. And, they might be proven right. I mean, we'll see. I trust them because their instincts have been so good over the last 10 years or so that you have to give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to these directions. But at the same time, that doesn't mean it has to be for me.
That's fair. I do want to say, too, for the idea of whether or not Evil is getting over or working, I do think there is, his merchandise is selling very well, and they do have fans in attendance holding up the Bullet Club towels and stuff. I do think there is some anecdotal evidence that he's more over there than, clearly the Western fan base is not, a huge proportion of them do not like him. But I do think there is some evidence that he's more over there than he is here. Joel, let's get you in here. What do you think about the Evil thing? Is New Japan ever gonna be the same as it was, or are we totally in the heel bullshit era forever? What do you think?
Well, like Joe said, we can't assess it on a business level, so all I can talk about is was it creatively satisfying? And for me, it was. As someone who gets more enjoyment out of the long-term storytelling and the twists and turns and character development of New Japan, for me, that the story made sense. This guy who's disillusioned from being the third best heavyweight in Los Ingobernables de Japón, and it made complete sense that he'd turn on his partner, turn on his stable to get a leg up to finally become a champion. So that all made sense to me. I thought the Dominion match and the finish was shocking and exciting. Damon and I praised that a lot on the Super J cast, and it was a fresh coat of paint for Evil. I thought he looked tremendous. The presentation was cool. The music was cool. And the matches feel more meaningful. Like now I feel that beating Evil means something. Like, we look at the reaction from the crowd when Zack Sabre Jr. managed to beat him in the G1, or when Yoshihashi came so close to avenging the way he went out in the New Japan Cup when he faced Evil in the G1. And yeah, I mean, like we said, cheating, that's what New Japan do. I mean, you mentioned AJ Styles, Naito in 2016, Jay White as well when he first started doing his heel work. I mean, you don't have to like it. I mean, it doesn't bother me so much because I don't see it as a long-term trend for the main event scene in New Japan. They just do it in little bursts to get over new heels. It's baby's first heel. It's the heel training wheels. There are probably better ways you could do it, but I mean, like Joe says, it is what it is. It also does seem to be popular with Japanese fans from people I've spoken to on Twitter. So I think that's where the big disconnect is. Japanese fans seem to dig it. Western fans aren't so keen. I mean, personally, I like the matches. I didn't love them. I mean, they're not touching my top three, but the power struggle match with Naito, the Zack and Yoshihashi matches in the G1 I mentioned, I thought were very good. So I just feel that overall, with the restricted attendances, New Japan are playing with house money. It was worth taking a risk. I think Evil feels more important than he did when he was an LIJ Jag. And if the aim was for a short-term elevation, like they did with Naito in 2016, having a little cup of coffee with the belt, I think it's a success. And I could be wrong. I don't think Evil's going to be doing that forever. But, I mean, the caveat to all this, that I looked on it more favourably before Kenta started doing it in the New Japan Cup, and Gorillas of Destiny started doing it in World Tag League, and El Phantasmo started doing it in the Super J Cup. So when everyone in Bullet Club is doing it, and it's happening in half the tournaments they're presenting, then it feels excessive.
Yeah, the power struggle, I'm glad you mentioned the power struggle match, because that was the one where, I thought people just, really got unfair with it and, were hand-waving it before it even happened. And maybe just, people just couldn't deal with the amount of interference in that match. But if you watch the spots between the interference, I mean, that was the best they worked together in all four matches, and it finally clicked all the way, and they had what I thought was an awesome match. But, I don't know, it felt like people were ready to hate that one before it even took place, so, because it was the fourth straight one. Damon, do you have any thoughts to add here to the Evil debate?
None at all, guys. I think I liked it a lot more when it happened than where we are now with Evil. For me, the shock that Rich was describing and Joe was describing of seeing that go down, especially coming off of the layoff, it was jarring, and it felt good because not only did we lose New Japan Pro Wrestling, but we lost sports in general, and it just felt like a huge void was missing in my life personally. Having that excitement and having that shock moment. Do I think that they did a shock moment just to do a shock moment? I don't know. But I know that we complained for months, begging. Like when they would have those pre-Tokyo Dome title defenses, and it was Evil. No one thought Evil was winning the title. Not a soul. And we had to sit through that just to get through the Dome. And then, all of a sudden, this guy that we were so conditioned to being, as it was so eloquently described as a hand wave or an eye roll, wins. And it's like, we want to elevate stars, and we want people to have new coats of paint, and we want people to kind of just, again, develop new stars. I mean, we have guys that might not be on the upswing of a career, and we got to create new stars. Just don't make it that guy, right? I think was a lot of the feedback that we were getting. We need stars, just not Evil. So he wins the title, and everyone's shocked. And I think it was really meant to be that one moment of Naito winning the title back in a stadium show, an outdoor venue, and that one shot of him on his knees doing his pose and the fireworks in the back. This was not a honky-tonk man title run where you're just like, geez, will this guy lose the belt? And how can they beat Steamboat? It was, what, a couple months? So it wasn't that bad. Yes, the matches. I am not a fan of the interference, especially, as Joe said, on a heavyweight title match. I really enjoy the fact that title is special. I really do enjoy the fact that not everyone gets a turn holding it. And I don't know if Evil was the right guy at the right moment, but I did enjoy the jarring effect of it. Now, fast forward to where we are right now. The guy's not holding the title, and he's not doing much of anything, period, right? So if the idea was to make this guy a star, and if the idea was to make this guy an important cog in the wheel, or if it doesn't feel like it now. He is, in fact, he's almost to the point where he's fast forward material, right? It's almost to the point where I can't sit through this guy.
I'm going to push back a little bit because that Evil Sonata match. Oh, sorry, you broke up out there for a second, David. I thought you'd stop talking. I'm sorry. You can keep going. You just broke up.
Evil Sonata match, right?
Yeah, I was going to.
Yeah, Evil Sonata match was. I mean, I blame more Sonata than anything else. I'm not the biggest fan, but I just don't know if Evil, like, if giving him the title for that cup of coffee just to give it back to Naito for those short couple of weeks was to make him a star. I don't know if that mission was accomplished here, December 19th, 2020. I don't know if that's if that was the goal. I don't know if that was a win for New Japan.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say, like I was going to say, the Evil Sonata match to me at Wrestle Kingdom feels like a way bigger deal than it would have if you hadn't had that Evil title run. So I do think they succeed to some degree in getting him over. I think it's really hard to tell to what degree with the with the clap crowds and stuff. But those, the fans are not going wild for the two of them, having the elbow exchange and, Sonata punching at him like they did at that Budokan show if Evil wasn't over to some degree, which, I just can't see them booking. As nonplussed as many fans may be here on these shores about that match happening, it does seem to be a match that people in Japan are into. So
it might be, but I'll tell you what, I guarantee you that's going to be snack time for Damon.
Well, that's fine.
That's me heating up leftover pizza in the microwave. Piss break. Check my phone, and all the above. I cannot say that I am interested in the least in Evil versus Sonata at a half-empty Tokyo.
The other thing the Evil win did to me, I think, is at least like the moment I'm going to remember the most from New Japan's 2020. One of them, anyway. Nothing more than Naito winning the double titles, I think. But one of the moments I'll remember is, Hiromu in the ring after Evil beat Naito, just screaming his head off, which was like one of the more bizarre scenes, I think, in New Japan history, and especially since we were not used to the crowd not being able to react the way they did in the past. But it's a scene that I think will stick out to people forever. You can't get that scene if Evil doesn't win the title. So there, you put Hiromu in that spot at Sengoku Lord the next month. You let him be the one Evil defense, and the way that crowd went nuts for they basically forgot they weren't supposed to cheer when Hiromu almost pinned him. There are other elements to the Evil win other than just Evil, and I do think the Evil Hiromu thing will be something that will be revisited once Hiromu, the generational, the fact that they came up together, that will be revisited once Hiromu eventually moves up to heavyweight, whether that's 2022, 2023. But I do think there's other parts to this Evil thing other than just him himself, and didn't work in this exact moment for people. But
no, I think you're right. I think they're clearly. I'll disagree with Damon a little. I think they're clearly elevating Evil here. I think Evil's a guy now, and I think he'll be a guy moving forward. And I think John is right in that off of this, they're eventually going to elevate Sonata and Hiromu as well.
I think Hiromu's already there, Joe. I think Hiromu is already there.
It's just a matter of it's just look. Rich and I talk about this all the time. There's one of two ways to go with Hiromu: elevate the entire junior division, or get him out of the junior division. Their pattern seems to be that they get guys out of the junior division as opposed to elevating the entire division. I don't really care which way they go. You know what I mean? As long as he eventually is headlining shows and drawing money. So I agree with you. And I do think Evil will be a catalyst to help get Sonata and Hiromu all the way there and over the top. The other thing about it is it's New Japan always they have always in this era done matches to death. They'll pair two guys up and they'll wrestle 4 times in 7 months, and you're sick of it. In this case, they did the Naito Evil match to death, and it was a shitty match, and it was a match structure that I hate, and it involves one of the two wrestlers that I just don't think is very good in Evil. I think he's okay. So when you add all those things together, you can see why somebody like me and a lot of the people who didn't like it hated it even more, because they're so sick of it. And on top of it, at least a lot of times when they pair two guys together and they wrestle 4 times in a row, by the 4th match you might be tired of it, but you loved you loved the first 2 or 3 matches so much that you just live with it. In this case, it was 4 matches that just were irritating to begin with, done in such succession.
I think they would have been more spread out, though, in a non-COVID year, though.
For sure.
Yeah, because it would have been Sakura Genesis where he wins the belt. Anyway, we don't have to go through the whole thing. But it would have been more spread out, I think.
And I will agree that the turn itself I liked. I thought that had impact and that was like a whoa moment, like Damon said. And like Rich alluded to, too. I liked the turn, and I did think that the final match was the best match. So I agree with both of those points. Everything in between, you could, go kick rocks. I hated it.
I did think it did give Naito an awesome moment at Jingu, like Joel said, which was...
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean, the match itself was my least favorite of the 4, but the actual moment at the end of it was pretty awesome.
Do you guys think this was in the works from the beginning?
Yeah.
Do you think this was in the plan for 2020?
I
or
think
was
so.
it a reaction to...
No, I think it was always the plan. Because the more I look at it, Naito started saying stuff in interviews about how Evil needs to catch up with the rest of the unit in February. So they were planting the seeds early. So yeah, I think.
And don't forget, we have Jericho saying on his podcast that Gedo told him he was going to put the title on Evil back when Jericho was in that program with Evil. So this was in the cards for a long time.
Do you believe that?
I mean, what would be Jericho's?
I mean, listen. Well, I've heard everything from Kenny's supposed to be in a Ibushi spot right now to, it seems like these guys have long conversations where it's now 24 hours and what else have you done today? You know what I mean? He seems to, why would Chris Jericho, seriously, why would Chris Jericho have all this insider knowledge? He's flown in. He goes to the hotel. He has a couple beers with people. He hides from everybody. You never see him. He turns away pictures and all that stuff. And then he goes to the shows. I just don't see.
Does he hide from Gedo though? That'd be my big. They go back a lot of years.
They do, but I just don't see Gedo's got a fucking Tokyo Dome to run. You know what I mean? Like, is he sitting around with Chris Jericho talking about booking plans for the next 2 years?
No. I think
Well, it would have come in when they worked together at Power Struggle in 2018, was it? So, Gedo's asking him, I want you to main event this show with Evil. We've got big plans for this kid. We're going to put the title on. And there is evidence there that Evil was always someone that they had high hopes for. Like, he beat Tanahashi in the 2017 New Japan Cup. He beat Okada in the G1 of the same year. So he's had these big spots sort of sprinkled throughout his career that if you connect them together, you can see the trajectory to the top.
Yeah. That's exactly it, Joel. It was I think the idea was Gedo pitched it to Jericho, and Jericho was like, this guy? And Gedo was like, no, I'm going to put the title on this dude. This guy's going to be a player. I think that came out when they were talking about doing the program. I think that's where the connection is.
All right, so we should move on because I don't want this entire hour to be Evil Hour. So let's talk about some other topics. So I think a big topic, I guess, is what the Western New Japan fan base has, thought about this year. Obviously, we all talk to the Western New Japan fan base, on our shows every week. I think we have, read on it and like what different fans have thought. Clearly, they've lost some fans right now. Clearly, some fans have dropped off. I think a big question in my mind is how much of that is the booking and how much of that is other factors. So I want to throw two factors out there, and I want to see what you guys think. And this time I'll start with the Super J-Cast guys. I think, and this is my statement here, and you guys can agree or disagree, I think the crowds are a huge aspect of this. And I get that everybody knows they are, on some level, or will say that they agree, but I think it's an even bigger aspect than some people give it credit for. Because you went from having the hottest crowds in wrestling, crowds that were living and dying with every near fall, that were, you would go to these Corkin shows in these meaningless elimination tags, and the fans would scream like wrestlers are going to get tossed over the top rope and fall into lava and die. I mean, that's how crazy these crowds were, in Tokyo especially. So you go from that to what we have today, which is only being able to clap, only being able to make very little noise. They break it sometimes, but it's still very rare. I think that's an even bigger downgrade and even bigger drag on the show than people admit. So I think that is an enormous turnoff, and I think just that going back to normal at some point, and who the fuck knows when that will be. I think it'll be well into 2021 if it even happens that year at all. I do think that will make an impact, and people will come back and, be like, the crowds are back now. Let me check this out again. So I do think that is an element to it. Joel, do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I do agree. But, I mean, what else is out there? I mean, what's the alternative? Would they rather watch a show in a half-filled Japanese arena where people are clapping for the most part, or watch a show from the States where it's in an empty arena? I mean, it's not as if that there are other promotions out there with. There
is one other promotion that is letting people scream as much as they want, because I just watched it on Wednesday night with Chris Jericho coming out, and they have the camera on these two fucking dudes with their masks pulled down, screaming out Jericho's theme song. I'm like, well, okay, screaming that virus into the air, guys.
In all fairness, that is Florida. I mean, that is.
It's just, I don't know. That part of it has frustrated me, because it's like, everything we've seen is the New Japan approach is actually like scientifically correct. I mean, screaming, singing, chanting, it, like, they've done studies on this. It does, put more virus in the air. So, I mean, you can think whether I've seen people act like that's a silly restriction. It's a scientifically correct restriction. I mean, I don't know. That's just my my little COVID rant, I guess. I mean, I think maybe it's not something they had to do, but it's something they should have done. And especially when the rest of Japanese wrestling and Japanese sports is doing it. I mean, you really can't be the only company that's like, come scream out all the virus you want. But anyway, yeah, I guess that is the alternative, Joel, is people screaming out Jericho's theme song on Wednesday nights.
I mean, I've got the data. I'm looking at some of the responses for our end of year awards for biggest disappointment, and at the moment, the first choice is increased shenanigans, so ref bumps, interference, cheating, and I think we discussed that. Yeah, the clap crowds are an issue. Also, quite high New Japan's lack of response to speaking out. I think when wrestlers like Will Ospreay came back and were elevated in the cards, excuse the pun, unintentional. I think that turned a lot of people off as well. The Ibushi briefcase, the Wrestle Kingdom booking has been an issue. A lot of people dislike Evil, so you mix all of those things together, and it's just it seemed, as you know, as Damon would say, shoveling 10 pounds of shit in a £5 bag. They've lost a big chunk of this year, and they need to establish new stars. And a lot of the people that they've picked to be their new stars are people that do not resonate with a Western audience as much as they do with the Japanese audience. So we're looking at people like Evil. Sanada, definitely. He's a guy who made the G1 Climax finals, and a lot of Western fans are quite indifferent towards him. Will Ospreay, obviously, a lot of controversy about him. El Phantasmo. These are the people that have been handpicked by the company to be the next generation of stars, and a lot of Western fans are not too keen on them.
Yeah, so that some of that's actually stuff I was planning to cover, but that's true. A lot of those problems are, kind of converging together. Damon, do you have anything to say about the crowds and the difficulty with that? And do you think
I think everybody struggles with it. Even outside of pro wrestling. I mean, you're watching hockey in front of empty arenas, or basketball in an empty arena, or football. It's hard. I get it, because I try to get into it myself, and it sometimes is like, okay, it's here, but it's not the same. Understood. And especially in pro wrestling, when the main objective is to get a crowd reaction, it's difficult. And you see the wrestlers that pattern their entire career and their life and their training on just that element struggling during this time.
Juice Robinson is a guy who struggled as well.
I mean, I think that a list is long, right? And we talk about it all the time. The people that I talk to that have kind of tuned out of New Japan, I think the majority of it is the booking, and the majority of it is people that they don't that it was hammered over their head that they are mid-card kind of guys, or even young lions. This is really the first kind of crop that we've had fans hop in on New Japan Pro Wrestling and see a young lion and development of young lions come back from excursions, and now they're stars. And I know that there are people that just can't wrap their heads around that. And it's been going on for years, mind you. We all know that. But it's kind of like their first go-around with this. And it's like, oh, what do you mean this guy? Jay White's a star. Evil's a star. And I think people sometimes have a tough time swallowing that. But again, I think that the biggest thing that people gravitated toward New Japan, especially new fans, were those epic main events. And the fact that it feels like that's being pulled away from them, the reason why they came, the reason why they're there, because they wanted to get rid of the bullshit. They didn't want to see that anymore. They missed a certain element of pro wrestling that, wow, they found it with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and now that's being taken away. I can find better things to do.
Anything to add, Joe? Joe?
I'm sorry, did you say Joel or Joe?
Oh, Joe, sorry.
I think there's three things affecting the decreased popularity of New Japan in the West. One is the crowds, which you have all touched on already, so I won't do that. I can tell you that all of our shows here on this podcast network are significantly less popular than they were before the pandemic. Downloads are way down because interest in wrestling is way down. And it's because of The Thing, and the consequence of The Thing being the clap crowds or empty arena crowds or what have you. So overall interest in wrestling, period, is down. And the other two factors are they lost their TV. People really underestimate the importance of the show on Axis to the quote unquote. I don't think you can call any New Japan fan a casual fan, because you have to be pretty deep in the weeds to follow something like New Japan. But the casual New Japan fan, I'll term it that way, their gateway and the way they followed the company, even when the show was several months behind, was that Axis show. So that was a big loss. And the third factor is AEW, because I think AEW took a lot of New Japan's Western market share. And I think a lot of the core AEW fan base are people who were super into New Japan before AEW existed. And a lot of their favorite New Japan wrestlers are now in AEW and are the top stars of AEW. So they're kind of getting their fix with their top wrestlers in an American-based company, which makes it everything else easier for them as well. And it's easier to hand wave New Japan when they don't have TV, You have the whole COVID mess, and all the stars that you preferred anyway are working for the company that's more accessible to you. So I think it's those three factors, and the TV cannot be underestimated.
The TV topic, I'm glad you brought up. I didn't have that down, and that's a good one. AEW I did have down, but maybe there isn't much else to say on that. I mean, they clearly have taken a ton of the fan interest away from New Japan, whatever I may think of their respective quality. Rich, any final thoughts, I guess, on the crowds or anything else about the declining Western interest?
Yeah, I think everybody else kind of nailed it there, so I won't repeat any points, but everything is kind of down. I mean, people that I know Damon knows this, covering hockey and covering sports, is like sports ratings. Every single time the NBA Finals, the NHL Stanley Cup, the World Series, anytime the ratings came out, people were like, "Holy shit, these ratings are like 40% lower than they were last year and 30% lower than they were last year." And people kept kind of clawing for ideas. Oh, it must be the NBA players are protesting, so nobody wants to watch that. And it's like, well, here's the Stanley Cup; they're down a bunch. It's like, well, it must be because of it. And I think everyone's just kind of resigned themselves to the fate that like less people are interested in everything, right now because of the lack of crowds, because of COVID, because of things going on in their lives, because of various stresses. And in America, obviously a very contentious election and a very contentious election season, like everything is down. So it's like, I don't know that I really want to make any grandiose statements about New Japan being down X amount this year compared to last year, yada, yada, yada. Without, like Joe said, everything's down. I mean, almost everything is down. I mean, yeah, on our website, I can definitely tell you that New Japan stuff is down more than really anything else in terms of like, traffic, in terms of the podcast downloads, in terms of the reviews, the previews, all that sort of stuff. I mean, New Japan has been hit the hardest of all the major companies this year as far as like web traffic goes, but everyone's down. So it's like, I don't want to make any grandiose statements that this is why, New Japan is down. I mean, I think maybe we can, in a year's time, if everything's back to normal next year, we can maybe look and say, okay, is this, maybe now we'll have an idea if people come back to other stuff and don't come back to New Japan or whatever. But I'm just not ready to make any big statements right now, just because, like I said, the whole world got kind of flipped upside down, and it's really hard to make any big picture, statements based off that.
COVID aside, guys, does that fall on Harold's shoulders?
What specifically?
Well, TV, losing talent, knowing that an American audience, they're lazy and they want to just turn on, they want to push a button on their TV. They might not necessarily want to log into New Japan World and have their password not take on their Fire Stick and have to log in 500. It's just the convenience factor. And the fact that you're right. The biggest stars in AEW, they had a home just a couple, months before starting up in New Japan. Like, does that fall on Harold's shoulders?
I think the TV thing is hard to pin on him because basically Anthem blackmailed them. Yeah. They gave them an ultimatum: do business with Impact or get off of our station.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to do business with Impact. I don't want to send my wrestlers to Impact. I don't want to have a business relationship with Impact if I'm New Japan, because it does nothing for me other than keeping my television slot. But at what trade-off? So, I mean, I can't really pin that on his shoulders because I can't say I wouldn't have made the same decision. I would have told him to kick rocks too. I think where the mistake was is they probably thought it would be a lot easier to find another outlet for their TV than it has been. It's very obvious that they're not going to be able to find another spot.
Right.
This is why, no matter how bad the hardcore New Japan fan drags their feet on this, it's just the right business move to get into bed with AEW, because then you get your wrestlers on TV in America. If the goal is to continue Western expansion, sit down with Tony Khan and make something happen. Get Okada and Naito and Tanahashi and whoever else on Dynamite and exploit that. If you find your own TV, you don't need them anymore. If you find your own TV, you don't need to do any business with it. But until then, that's really your only outlet at this point. And AEW would be open to that. I mean, if they're open to doing business with Impact, they'd be open to doing business with New Japan. And I know the hardcore fan doesn't want to hear that, but I'm just approaching it from a business perspective. If they attempt to run shows in America, if and when things ever get back to normal, without any kind of television,
they're fucked.
They're fucked.
Yeah, that Madison Square Garden show is fucked. we can agree with that, right? That's going to be that is on thin ice, to say the least.
I wouldn't even run it.
No.
I would not run it. It'll be an embarrassment. It'll be what happened with AAA.
It'll be what happened in Dallas is what will happen.
At best.
Yeah.
The best you can hope for is 5,000 fans. I think they'd be lucky at this point with no TV and no elite. I mean, I think it would struggle. Yeah, and Dallas is the template. You're dead on. So I wouldn't even run it because I think it would just be egg on your face.
It would look terrible, wouldn't it?
The only counter argument though is at least MSG is like in the most populous section of the country that has this huge history of wrestling. I don't know. I just don't think they would do 5 to 10, but
they have no momentum. And you're right. There's no TV, and again, it's the hardcores that are logging into New Japan World and watching, and if the numbers are down as we see across the board. That's a tough building to sell and an expensive building, to say the least.
Well, the one number that's not down at all is New Japan World subscribers, right? I mean, that's what's been reported anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're up or down.
No, they're up. They've said that they're as high as they've ever been.
Then that's good news on that point. Does that necessarily correlate to big buildings being profitable?
No, and circling back to the Harold thing, I mean, Harold May, he was a guy, whenever you saw his quarterly presentations he did, he was always someone who talked about, you could see the interviews, he's saying that, the balance is too heavily weighted in favour of ticket sales, but it didn't seem like he did much about that. And even the guy before Harold May, I can't remember his name, but he came up with new TV deals. There were new TV deals in India and France, Korea. So I think there were high expectations for this foreign president he was a senior executive at Coca-Cola. And the feeling was he didn't really have his eye on creating international business deals very much.
Well, there you go. The AEW thing, I guess we can touch on since Joe brought it up. For my personal enjoyment, do I want an AEW New Japan thing? I don't really. I mean, just watching that Dynamite this past week and seeing just how many fucking green as grass wrestlers are on that roster, like my horror honestly goes to my nightmare is having to watch like The Acclaimed or fucking Private Party in the World Tag League, because I do think they would be several steps below what we're used to seeing, like from a bell-to-bell standpoint on the New Japan roster. And I feel like, if I was AEW, that's what I would want to get out of this relationship when it comes to sending people to Japan. I don't think we would be getting what purpose would there be from their standpoint to send Pac to the or to the Best of Super Junior or something. I think it would be all, green wrestlers who they want to get more reps. And, from that standpoint, I really don't need any of that. I really don't want to see any of that at all. On the other hand, obviously, as Joe said, getting the New Japan guys on Dynamite every week would be huge for, getting any momentum going for New Japan in America again. And, I wouldn't mind turning on TNT and seeing Tetsuya Naito or Okada or whoever. It would sure as hell be more entertaining to me than what I turn on when I watch Dynamite most of the time. So that from that part of it, I don't really have a problem. And I wouldn't mind seeing Kenny come back and, work a match or two, or, Moxley come back for more regular shots. They can keep Jericho at this point. But yeah, I guess that's where I'm at on the AEW New Japan thing. What do you think, Damon? What do you think about AEW New Japan?
I think a lot of the people that are skeptical of a partnership is that New Japan's going to take the short end of the stick. And they're not going to be presented in a favorable fashion. I think that's the majority of the people's biggest concern. Aside from, the little jabs at Kenny or the little jabs at the Young Bucks. Look, New Japan was never more popular in the United States than when they were on the roster and they were involved. And let's not hand wave some really fucking great matches, right? It involved more than a few of those people.
Not Cody.
What's that?
It's not Cody.
The Ibushi match.
Yeah,
Well, that was the only one.
But I don't know. To me, I think the one saving grace is it's not like it's Jim Herd, or it's not like it's I'm going to Eric Bischoff, or it's not like it's Russo, or it's not like it's McMahon's, or it's Tony Khan is a wrestling fan first and foremost. He's a businessman too, but he's a pro wrestling fan, and he I don't necessarily, not everything sticks with me with AEW, certainly not, but there are stuff that I'm like, okay, this is pretty great. I think at this point, where New Japan is right now, it's not the worst idea. Again, do I expect New Japan guys to go over on TV and just get jobbed out to Joey Janela? No disrespect to Joey Janela, but I don't think that's going to happen if there was a partnership. And here's the thing, too. They already deal with a bunch of the top guys anyway. Moxley, Jericho. It's like they New Japan has a beef with a person at this point, it feels like. And I think that can be worked out, to be truthful.
Joel, what do you think? Joel.
I think an AEW deal wouldn't add much for New Japan domestically. I mean, I think their business is absolutely fine in Japan at the moment, but it's all the TV deal. Would working with AEW necessarily help them get a TV deal? I don't know about that, but it would certainly help for US ticket sales. Like, for example, if they can get a John Moxley or a Kenny Omega or Young Bucks to be able to work a New Japan show in the USA, they could do big business at Madison Square Garden, for example. But I feel that the people in charge in New Japan, like Kidani Sugabayashi, they feel that they've had their fingers burnt by these guys. They don't really trust them, and I think they are reluctant to get into bed with them.
Yeah, what you've just brought up is the big stickling point for Khan, apparently, where he does not want his guys working shows in the U.S., of partner companies. Although now, aren't they letting Kenny work Impact? I mean, I guess maybe we're sort of seeing an evolution of that, right? But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Those are all things you hammer out at the table, though.
Right.
So you would, it's you get to sit down at the table, and then that becomes one of your negotiation points. So all those things could be worked out. I just think it would be advantageous for both sides. There's clear advantages to both sides, not just with AEW sending their green talent to work New Japan tours, but New Japan sending their young boys and some of their talent to AEW, knowing that they're gonna it's gonna be a solid part of the excursion, a steady company that runs weekly. They'll wrestle 1 million matches on Dark. They can go to QT Marshall and Cody's school and in between the LA dojo sessions. Far more stable than just sending them off to work random indies or work with ROH, and we all know how badly ROH does with excursions and things like that. So, there's clear advantages, both business advantages and talent development advantages on both sides. And I completely agree with Damon in that I don't think Tony Khan would misuse the New Japan talent. And maybe we're both being naive. I think anybody who came over from New Japan to AEW would be treated at the level that they're at when they come over.
I agree.
Still seems like an unfair trade, the green guys on each side, because the New Japan young boys are actually good. But either way.
But they wouldn't be pushed.
I know, I get it.
They would do jobs on Dark the way that the indie talent does jobs on Dark. So it's not like, from that standpoint. And let's not pretend that New Japan is always bringing over top class talent. I mean, Leland Race and whoever that other clown worked the tag league a couple of years ago, and they're not better.
Who I completely forgot, by the way.
Brian Breaker, yeah, Jesus.
Sammy Callahan came over a couple of years ago to work the tag league, and it's like
Steve Anthony. Not to offend you, Joe. I know you're a big fan of Mr. Steve
NWA.
Anthony.
Yeah, they were more than willing to bring the NWA guys over with Bruce Tharpe a few years ago, and
Robert Conway, making a
Big Daddy Yum Yum. So
some of these are pretty old though, but I get it. I mean,
yeah.
I think most of these most of the AW guys that I think they would send over are not up to the level of New Japan roster, but I get what you're saying. There are some other guys who have come over that really weren't very good. I would not want to see some of these people for like a 3-month stint. That would be
I'm with you.
horrific.
Look, I don't think a lot of these people are good, but it's like, again, this is what you hammer out at the table, though.
Yeah.
New Japan. Gedo takes a look at the roster and says, "I like this guy, this guy, and this guy. Who can I have?"
Well, and you don't worry about the little. I mean, the goal, the end goal, the big picture goal is okay. New Japan wants to draw better in America. AEW wants, you don't worry about the, hey, how are you going to use Ren Narita, or what? Where's Max Caster going to be booked? You're worried about big picture stuff. You're worried about selling out MSG. You're worried about that sort of stuff. Getting back on TV. Getting stuff for your big guys. Yeah, like you hammer the little details later. Look at it. Look at the big picture stuff.
I'm glad you brought up MSG. Look at it this way: they were willing to run MSG with Ring of Honor and split the gate. Why would if you sit down at the table and you pitch that to Khan? You say, look, we sold out MSG with Ring of Honor, and let's face it, that was mostly us. And the guys and people who bought tickets to see the guys who ended up not working the show that now work for you. So let's get together. We can run MSG together and split, and you see what Khan says. I mean, there's a million possibilities here where it can be advantageous from a business standpoint for both sides.
And it's not like that roster and the people that are on top at AEW haven't already worked at New Japan.
Right. There's storyline tie-ins, everything.
I mean, Cody, Mox, best friends, for crying out loud.
There's money to be made. I mean, okay. We just talked about how if New Japan ran MSG this year, how we're afraid they would take a beating and maybe they shouldn't even. If New Japan and AEW ran a joint show at MSG, it would sell out in 2 minutes.
Yep,
2 minutes flat. I mean, if I'm New Japan and I'm Tony Khan and I could get the egos out of the way, I just see so much money sitting on the table. And Khan, I mean, as I said, if he's willing to work with Impact and he keeps talking about wanting to, shift the balance of power in wrestling, I feel like his side would be open to this.
Well, clearly there has to be something going on here. Because
Joel nailed it. I get why New Japan would be apprehensive. Yeah. These guys didn't resign. They jumped to this new company. There's distrust there, and I understand that completely. But time and money tend to heal these things.
I mean, there's no point in hammering it out right now, too, right? When there's no
point.
Yeah, so you have to wait till COVID's over. But
that's it. I think the people like Kizani Sugabashi, they're waiting to see what the post-COVID, if such a thing exists, post-COVID landscape is in the US before they start dipping their toes in the water. And the fact that you have apparently Rocky Romero talking to AEW about things is a sign that maybe they're not completely against the idea.
Although
at the end of the day, it's going to be those two who have to greenlight it.
How much he's been talking with them? He apparently is more disputing. Because remember, Dave said
he's not going to go on that podcast and be like, "Yep, I talk to him every day." And, he's trying to be a little bit of a coy negotiator, I'm sure.
Yeah, I do think there's been I just wanted to point out there's been, I think, there's clearly some people who really want this to happen, and I think they do have a tendency to get ahead of themselves a little bit each time. I mean, I remember when that video that Kenny put out with fucking Ibushi and the G1 trophy, when everybody thought that meant, oh, they're doing this. And then it was just like, nah, it's just this weird thing Kenny wanted to do. It didn't actually, there was no change.
Every time Kenny farts, people are, does that mean that I'm going to have a golden glove match?
Well, he keeps farting New Japan stuff. So, I mean, that's on him too, right? I mean, he made that fucking video.
Well, the way people...
Oh, yeah, he's doing it all the time. The Thanos art with the have you seen that with the glove thing, the Infinity Gauntlet with the IWGP title thing there, and everyone's like, oh, look, he's not going to be doing this for no reason. So at the very least, he is working extremely hard to drum up interest in their big deal.
I mean, he feel like he mentions it every 2 fucking seconds, honestly.
Look at it this way. The way that every fart in the wind drums up all this kind of interest in this thing tells you how big it could be. Right.
That's fair.
If they do eventually do it, which I feel like personally it's an inevitability.
Okay.
I just think because it makes too much sense from both sides, and it's pro wrestling, and it's just money at the end of the day talks. And I don't think it's imminent or right around the corner, but I do think it's inevitable at this point.
Yeah, it depends on their goals. I mean, and if their goal is making money in the United States, I can't see any other path.
Okay, that's I mean, I definitely think it will probably happen eventually. I'm just saying right now, please don't send the Acclaimed. Okay, I do not need to hear them rapping their way out to a confused Korakuen and then hitting people with boom boxes.
Well, listen, we'll have something to do with the Intercontinental title now. Britt Baker is your new.
Would it be any worse on the reception the Kingdom get a Korakuen when they do on arriving?
Probably not.
You want your holiday roast to be perfect, so start at Safeway. We offer the highest quality USDA choice beef, and we can custom cut it just the way you like. Pick up your bone-in prime rib roast today, whole in the bag for only $4.47 per pound with Just For You digital download. And earn up to 6 times reward points this season with Safeway. The more you spend, the more rewards you earn. Get this great deal on Just For You on the Safeway app. Some limits may apply. Safeway. Fresh foods, local flavors.
Who are you texting?
My therapist.
You text with your therapist?
Text, video chat, call. Yep.
That sounds too easy. How did you find her?
I just went to betterhelp.com/save. She's a licensed therapist and it's all online. I connect when it's convenient for me and don't waste time driving anywhere. Plus, it's affordable.
I wonder if I should try it.
It's great to talk to someone in confidence. She's helped me sort out quite a few things. And right now you save 10% off the first month when you go through betterhelp.com/save.
Betterhelp.com/save. Got it.
So the last little topic I'm going to go to before we get into the best and worst stuff of the year, and then also the questions. I guess I want to ask this as a general statement / question, and see if you guys agree, see if you disagree. And I'll just go, maybe it'll be a very simple answer, but I'll go down the list. I think New Japan Pro Wrestling, for all the booking problems that you may or may not have had this year, I think some people had more problems than others, clearly, and, for the clap crowds and all that, I still think opening bell to main event, the wrestling standard of the roster is still, if not the highest in the world, it's no worse than second place, honestly. Rich, do you agree or disagree with this? Do you think they're still one of the best bell-to-bell wrestling companies in the world when you look at the entire roster? Rich.
So you broke up there. Were you going to me?
Yes.
First, okay. Sorry, I didn't. It broke up a little bit there. Yeah, I think so. I don't think that's ever been in question this year. I mean, it's obviously been a weird year booking wise, but no, I think the work itself is, by and large, still very, very good. I mean, obviously this year, maybe it hurt a little bit by Okada not really hitting the highs that he had hit in the last few years, and obviously not hitting the highs that the main event scene did because of Evil. But yeah, I think by and large, it's still a very, very talented roster, one of the best rosters. And one of the best in-ring rosters in the world. Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt of that.
Joe, I'm interested to hear your answer here because I feel like you especially were much lower on Best of Super Junior and stuff than I was. So what do you think?
Oh, yeah, I was. But no, I mean, in terms of my notebook matches, New Japan laps the field again this year. It's not even close. The next closest promotion isn't even close. So it's still the best in-ring promotion in the world, even if I think they've taken a couple steps backward, but they were so far ahead of everybody else that it's still a significant gap between New Japan and number 2. It's and New Japan's best stuff still just hits higher than everyone else. So I agree that they're the best in-ring promotion in the world.
Yeah, and I think where they stand out to me is there are other promotions that have hit really high too this year. I mean, Noah for sure has hit really, really high with their main events. I mean, AEW, even when I make fun of, I think 80% of that roster fucking sucks. The 20% that's good can do really good stuff. I still think the New Japan roster from as far as having a competent roster that can always do at worst 3.25 stars, I think they're still the best in the world at that. Damon, I don't think you're going to disagree, or Joel, but I guess, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Joel, you could probably speak on it a little bit more because you have access to the information, but I mean, we have a year-end poll where we have a match of the year, and we had no trouble coming up with a nice long list for people to vote. And I don't know if you could say the same thing for every single promotion. I'm not saying every single one of those matches is, top of the heap and, should win. No, I definitely had my solid 3, but I think there's enough there and a body of work there, even in a year where they took off, a handful of months, and the struggles with no crowds, and shaky booking at times. I still think there's more in ring than just about any other promotion.
Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, whilst the IWGP title matches are arguably not at their usual level, I think a lot of the stuff underneath it has improved. For example, the heavyweight tag title division, I think, has been excellent this year. I think Shingo Takagi's reign as Never Openweight champion has been very good. Even something like the Never Openweight 6-man titles have felt exciting and more important this year with the Yoshihashi Ishii Goto team. So I feel a lot of the stuff on the undercard has been elevated and improved to compensate for the fact that the main event matches are maybe not everyone's cup of tea right now.
Yeah, so I think we're all kind of in agreement there. So we don't have to belabor that point. But some positivity here, because I think some of this show has been very negative. But yeah, I do still think the wrestling quality is probably the highest in the world overall. Okay, so let's talk about best and worst and various different award contenders in your observer style awards. I'll start with your Flair Thez. I guess, Joel, if you're going to name wrestler of the year, not just in ring but also MVP quality, who would it be for New Japan, and would you consider them a major contender for the award overall?
Probably go with Tetsuya Naito. I think he's the guy who's been carrying the flag for the company. He's when you think of 2020 New Japan, I think Naito is the person you think of. Closing out that second night at Wrestle Kingdom, closing out the Summer Struggle match in Jingu Stadium. I thought he had an excellent G1 as well. They relied on him very heavily for main events in the G1 climax. So yeah, I think he's your man.
Damon?
This is the first year that you really can't take business considerations into consideration. And that's why I kind of lean a little bit more toward Hiromu. And for me, he's a junior, who aside from Jushin Liger in the 90s, name me another junior that could arguably be on the 2020 New Japan Pro Wrestling Mount Rushmore. He's had an outstanding in-ring year. He's been a focal point. And truth be told, he's probably the one guy that I've been interested in the entire year. I just think if there's anyone, and I know for years, people, Kushida was, he's going to be he's nowhere near what Hiromu is right now.
Joe?
I think it's Naito by default. I don't think I won't consider him for the overall award in Worldwide Wrestling.
So to be clear, he will not make your top 3.
No.
Okay.
Well, no, probably not, because I'm throwing out business this year, and half of Naito's, such a huge portion of Naito's year was the black hole of evil. And it was just so off-putting to me. And I didn't love his G1. Joel liked his G1. I thought Naito's G1 was okay. So when you take that away, what are you left with? The Double Dome, the Kenta feud, and then a whole lot of stuff that I didn't really love. So, but he's the default New Japan choice. There's no other choice. I can't pick Evil. Okada was downcycled. Tanahashi downcycled even more than Okada was, even though I think he had a sneaky great year when I was looking at my stuff last night. Hiromu's an interesting choice, but
he's a junior. Say it, Joe. Go ahead. He's a junior.
I'm the anti-junior guy now.
I don't know.
No, but I mean, there's just too much there with Naito. When you consider the Double Dome, the moment beating Okada, and finally getting his moment, and then the Jingu outdoor show. It has to be Naito. He's
selling out Osaka Joe Hall as well.
Osaka. I was about to say that the Osaka. If you do want to bring up any business at all, that Osaka Joe Hall sellout for New Beginning is that's the kind of achievement that I don't think is getting enough attention. I mean, they have never They've never sold out a building close to that big for a B-level show before.
So his first third of the year it makes it impossible for anybody else on the roster to compare. It has to be Naito.
Yeah. I mean, Naito would be my pick too. I don't think that's surprising to people. Rich, what do you think?
So are we doing like an in-ring wrestler of the year?
Yeah, we're gonna do
okay,
both.
all right.
Yeah,
so because I'm kind of with Damon too. It's like, I don't know that I necessarily want to count business. Like, I feel like, but if there are 2 awards and one obviously does have to count business this year, then the clear choice is definitely Tetsuya Naito. The Double Dome, as you mentioned, the few shows in the first half of the year, then whatever else he's kind of done this year. By default, really, it doesn't matter. I mean, the first 3 months or whatever, I think all the credit has to go to him for most of those big houses. So, he's the easy pick for that.
You're all cowards. All cowards.
I gave it to Naito. And Naito is my pick overall too, but that's who I give it to. And like Joel, I thought his G1 was excellent. So that's where I'm at with that. Actually, before we keep doing the awards, the other topic I forgot to bring up, and it's one where I think we all would agree, and where I think we all can be pretty positive. How awesome is the Great-O-Khan? I think because I've seen so many people pushing back on him in the West, especially. I think Dave Meltzer not liking him is a big part of it. But like that guy, it just came back, made such a huge impact on Okada. Running in on that Okada Ospreay match, and he is like his merch is flying off the shelves apparently. New Japan said that towel of his sold out in 2 hours. I don't know. It's just maybe it's too early for a victory lap, but like I thought he was great pretty much from the moment he came back, and watching him work all that judo and sambo and everything into his move set during the World Tag League really just made me like him even more. So I think he's the people who are like complaining about that Okan Tanahashi match. Joe has been ranting about this too. I think we've both, one of the few things that he and I have both ranted on lately on the flagship and Omakase. It's like the people who complain about that don't have a fucking clue. I mean, that's just, Okan's going to be a huge star for the next like decade probably. I don't know, Joe, do you want to add anything?
I mean, I completely agree. People who listen to the flagship, I mean, I pretty much talk about it every week. There's just a pattern here. I mean, people didn't believe in Okada at first. People didn't believe in Jay White when he first came back, and they're going to get burned again here. I mean, he just has a certain star presence that you can't teach. And I'm not worried about the work. I don't even think the work is bad. People say he's bad. I don't think he's bad.
I don't really understand where they're getting that from at this point. I mean, like, what was bad about when he was taking down Tanahashi with these awesome leg captures and like working all these holds in between, like his spots that are already over. Like, what is bad is what I don't get.
And the thing is, he's going to continue to refine it. I mean, look at Jay White's early work with the Switchblade character. It takes a while. These guys have to find their footing and work to these characters. It takes Jay White wasn't what he is now when he first came back, not even close. It's trial and error. It's workshopping things, and I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about, do you have the necessary charisma and star presence and those things that you can't teach, and he has them.
And sorry to cut you off there, Joe.
No, it's okay.
Joel even mentioned that on the JCast, where you take where Jay White was at that time and where Okan is now, going into their first dome.
He's way ahead of schedule.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's been doing this character for 2.5 years.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the Switchblade Jay White's first ever match.
Yeah, it's a great point. And the other thing that this character has shown, same pattern in Europe. People shit on it at first, and then they slowly came around on it. And I think we're seeing the same pattern here. It's an odd character. We would all agree on that. So there's an adjustment period to kind of understand what he's doing and to get past maybe the initial shock of the cartoonish aspects of it. This is exactly what happened in Rev Pro as well. And eventually it turned into irony. And then that irony turned into, no, this guy just rules. And he was right on the verge of a major push when COVID shut down the world. They had the long undefeated streak, and Legion was the top heel faction. And he was right on the verge of being a top guy there when everything shut down. And it's the same pattern we're seeing with people being first exposed to him now. Shitting on it for being a cartoon. Now you have some people coming around ironically on it. And before you know it, the guy's going to be a major star. And look, I don't have to tell anybody on this show. Like I said, there's no mid-level podcasters here. But getting a Tanahashi match at Wrestle Kingdom, that's the rubber stamp. Yeah. So whether you're on board or not, you're stuck with this
You're
guy.
not going to have a choice. Yeah, it's happening. So whether you want it or not.
Yeah, and Tanahashi, it's not like he walked into the office and was told, "Oh, you're getting him." I'm sure there was he has a big say on who he wrestles in his singles match at the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah, we ran it down in the flagship, and it's like, it's a who's who. Other than Taiyo Kiya in 2007, it's a who's who of guys that are either were stars, are stars, or would soon become stars. So yeah, he's, unless we completely want to buy in on Hiroshi Tanahashi just completely getting downcycled, but I don't think that's the case.
What disrespect!
He doesn't do shit unless he wants to do it. He's Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Yep.
The disrespect to a former Triple Crown champion, Taiyo Kiya. Can't stand for that.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I'm kidding. He wasn't that good.
Yeah.
There's a decent chance Tanahashi asked for this.
Yeah.
No doubt. I think there's no doubt. Yeah.
To help get the guy over on to the next level. So.
And by the way, I want to cut this off right at the pass before it happens. It doesn't matter at all if Tanahashi beats him, because I've already seen some people saying that, like, oh, if Tana beats him, I don't know. It's like, yeah, Tanahashi beat Jay White. How's that working out?
Right.
They're going to push this guy, like one way or another. I mean, nothing. It will not matter what the result is at the Tokyo Dome. By this time next year, he's going to be one of the top guys in the company.
Yeah.
I mean, New Japan booking patterns. Tanahashi has to be the favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, he beat Jay White. This guy already lost to Okada. They tend to see me. I would do the opposite, and I'd have these guys come out of the gate and beat the big star, especially a guy in his mid-40s. But New Japan tends to do the opposite. They make the new guy take their lumps first, and then slowly earn the win. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Tanahashi wins. And no, it does not matter. And I'll go a step further. It doesn't even matter if the match doesn't land, unless it's a complete dumpster fire, which is a different. But Tanahashi's not capable of that unless it's Billy Gunn.
Not that building.
Yeah, and like people are. I mean, I've had people tell me that, like, if you go just on like Japanese Twitter and stuff, there's a lot of O-Khan support already. So like this is a guy who is connecting with the fan base over there to a big degree.
Imagine O-Khan getting that towel and that question mark, and them saying, "Oh, by the way, we're looking forward to you and Tanahashi in the Dome."
Yeah.
I can't speak to this, but he's also very creative on Twitter, from what I've noticed. And he comes across like a pretty good promo. Now, again, I can't speak to it, but I also noticed they allow him to do some of the talking for Empire. So there must be something to that. He seems like a clever guy who understands the right things to say, and he at least comes across to me as someone who doesn't understand what he's saying, as someone who's a pretty decent promo in a way that fits his character. Yeah. I don't know if any of you have insight on that.
I think he is a good promo already. I mean, the you can tell the way they let him go out there without a microphone and just project to that building, But yeah, I mean, he's a guy that connects with an element of the fan base too. I mean, when they let him go out there, and I think some people were surprised by this, but they let him go on Twitter and still be like put Love Live like anime stuff over his face instead of the question mark. Even as a heel, I think that connects with like. An element of the New Japan fan base that's also into that stuff. And
you can see just by looking at him, he's just oozing with confidence right now. Yeah. Everything he does, he's doing
that's super important.
He carries himself like a star. He knows he's a star.
And that's so important. I mean, Jay White had it. He had it when he was a young lion, and yeah, the same things were said a little bit early about Oka, but now that you see him here, it's just like, yeah, this dude. That is so much what it is that confidence, and that's a company that seems to really when you feel it. They feel it. You know what I mean? When they know that you feel like a star and you act like a star and you project like a star, there's a good chance they're going to make you a star. They're going to turn you into a star. So
people see through you when you're not confident in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Master Wato.
Yeah, I was about to say, a great example of somebody who still feels like he's embarrassed every time he walks through that curtain. And that happens with, I mean, that it's not what I mean, go to an indie show, go to an American indie show. Half the guys are still embarrassed to walk through that curtain and go, "Oh my God, here I am in my, in my trunks, wrestling in front of it." And then there's these guys that walk through and they fucking own the building. They own that room, and those are the guys that are stars. Those are the guys that become stars. So,
yeah. But I wanted to throw that in there because I know that was a topic I was pretty sure we all agreed on, having listened to both your shows. So, okay, so back to these awards. Most Outstanding Wrestler, strictly in ring. Who had the best year in New Japan? Rich, what do you think?
My vote is going to be Shingo Takagi. I thought the matches with Okada, the matches with Will, 2 matches with Sho that I really liked, 2 matches with Tomohiro Ishii I really liked, including the one very early in the year, I think February. If I remember correctly, a good match with Goto in February. I thought when you add in, he just had the opportunity as well. I mean, he was in all most of the big tournaments and played a pretty big role throughout the year in terms of singles matches. Had I think obviously not the most singles matches when you compare him to the Young Lions or your Yu Amurs or whatever, but a guy who had a disproportionately large amount of singles matches, so a disproportionate amount of opportunities to maybe shine in a single setting. But I thought he nailed it almost every time. So. Maybe not the highest of highs. Obviously, Okada and Naito and Ibushi, I think, and even Hiromu to an extent have higher highs. But I thought Shingo, in terms of just consistently having high level matches throughout the year, he was my clear pick.
And is he going to be on your overall ballot?
I haven't actually really sat down and done that yet.
I know because
yeah, you definitely know. He's on the short list right now. I can't say definitively yes or no, but he will definitely be under consideration.
Joe?
It's got to be neck and neck with Hiromu and Shingo. It's one of those two. Man, it's so hard to pick. The thing about it is I think I liked Shingo's G1 a little more than Hiromu's Best of the Super Junior. And the thing about Shingo is he really carried the summer for me. On all of those summer shows that I hated, not just because of the main events, I just didn't think New Japan had a good summer at all. I think there was a 3-show stretch that was flat out bad. It was the Shingo matches that I thought were the saving grace on every one of those shows. So from that perspective, maybe I lean a little bit towards Shingo.
To be clear, I think you mean New Japan Cup Final, Dominion. Basically, I'm asking Sengoku Lord, right? You don't mean Jingu. Did you think Jingu was bad? I don't know. Maybe that's I didn't.
Hold on, I'm confused. There were definitely 3 in a row. It was the New Japan Cup Final for sure.
Yeah.
What came after that?
Dominion, Sengoku Lord, I guess.
It's those 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jingu was good. I think
Jingu was pretty good. I thought Jingu was pretty fun. Yeah, but those other 3 were when I was. I remember telling you these. I thought that was the worst 3-show stretch that New Japan had maybe. Since 2008 or 9. I mean, I hated those shows.
Damon, what do you think here from Most Outstanding Wrestler?
It's a short list. But I think there are certain people that deserve consideration. I think Suzuki deserves consideration. Joe, I'm thrilled that you brought up Hiroshi Tanahashi because I think he had a very underrated year. Shingo as well, but for me, it's Hiromu. From him at the Dome. Kind of being in important junior matches, to just coming off of this Best of the Super Junior, where he's in contention of Match of the Year, I think, for New Japan. There's name me a bad Hiromu match, and I don't think there is any. So for me, he's the guy that kept me interested in New Japan in a year where there were moments where, I struggled. And he was the one guy that if he's on the show and he's in a singles match, I knew I could count on.
Joel?
Yeah, it's Hiromu for me by quite a comfortable margin. So the Ospreay match at Wrestle Kingdom, the Ryu Lee match, New Beginning, I thought his New Japan Cup run was really good. I quite enjoyed it. I thought the Honma match was decent. The Ishii match was outstanding. A lot of people really high on the Okada match and the New Japan Cup. I like the Evil match at Sengoku Lords. The Ishimori match at Jingu was great. The Ishimori rematch during Best of the Super Juniors I thought was very good. The first Despy match in Best of the Super Juniors, I like that a lot. He managed to drag Bushi to a really good match. Right. The Doki match was outstanding. Really good match with Uemura. Yeah, Eagles main event, the show main event, terrific. I love the Taguchi match.
I did too.
One of my favorite of the year.
That match made my top 10 for the New Japan ebook. I put that in 10th. I love that match.
Not surprised. And then just bookending it with those 2 matches, the Ospreay match and then the Despy Best of Super Juniors final. He's had an incredible year, and this is his first year back since he broke his neck. That Ospreay match was his first singles match since his return. So just think about that for a minute. He has just absolutely killed it in 2020, coming off the back of a broken neck.
So I will pretty much agree with everybody. I have Hiromu 1. I guess everybody but Rich. Rich, I think, was the one who said Shingo. I have Hiromu 1. And he's second on my overall ballot. And then I have Naito 2, because I really did love his G1 a lot more than it seems like anybody but Joel. But yeah, I mean, then probably Shingo 3. But those are the guys that stood out to me. Suzuki's a good one too. Suzuki had a really awesome first half of the year. I just thought he didn't really sustain it into the second half. But
Suzuki and Tanahashi are really being overlooked by a lot of people when I look through my notes. They had big years, and I have to mention Ishii too, because I'd have him in my top 3. I think.
There you go. Best tag team, I think. Okay, 3 of us here, I think, would say Dangerous Tekkers, not just the best tag team in New Japan, but probably the best tag team in wrestling by a wide margin. I think Joel and Damon would agree with me on that. I don't know about Joe and Rich, because you guys have been the 2 lowest people on Dangerous Tekkers, I think, on the entire planet. I'm just saying.
I'm a lot.
Well, I don't know. Well, maybe he's just thinking of Joe.
I just don't love them. I don't think they're the greatest team in the universe.
They're running away with both the Omakase, the guest awards and the patron awards. That category is the biggest.
No, who the fuck else is there?
Well, I'm just saying, for all of wrestling, those categories are the biggest runaways in both awards. I mean, they're destroying the field so far. But yeah, I mean, Dangerous Tekkers, I think they were an outstanding tag team. Joel and Damon, do you disagree at all? Is there anybody else? Either one of you?
Joel, I mean, and listen, here's the best compliment I can give, is that the IWGP Tag Team Championship meant something. Where everyone just complained for years about those belts, and I feel like they mean something. And then the second thing is that it made me care about Tai Chi. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm a fan of Tai Chi, like he would be in Liger category or Tanahashi category for me. No, but he's gone from a guy where it's an instant fast forward to a guy who, all right, that match was good, to a guy that, all right, that match was really fucking good, to a guy that, all right, I'm settling in on Tai Chi, and I think he's a highlight. Ooh, that struggled to come out. He's a highlight for me.
Joe?
Yeah, Country Mall is Dangerous Tekkers as tag team of the year. Their feud with the Golden Aces was outstanding, but particularly the Dominion match. I thought that was just brilliant. One of the best IWGP heavyweight tag matches I've seen for a very long time. And the Korakuen defense against Goto and Yoshihashi, the one that went 35 minutes, I thought that was terrific as well. Their match against LIJ, Sanada, and Shingo during World Tag League was excellent. So, yeah, there's no one else.
Joe, do you want to, as the official Dangerous Tekkers hater, the floor is yours.
I mean, I liked the match in July. I think that was the first match. I just got burnt out on it, against Tanahashi. And when you throw in all the singles matches and all the tags, it's just, I got burnt out on it. And no, the team doesn't do as much for me as it seems to do for everybody else. I think they're the masters of having an 18-minute match that feels like it's 48 minutes long. They're fine. I mean, I don't hate them, but they just don't do a ton for me. They're the tag team of the year by default. I mean, who else are you going to go with? There's no one else to go with. You like Despy and Kanemaru that much? I mean, I don't think anybody does. So, I mean, I could take them or leave them. They could break them up tomorrow. It wouldn't matter to me at all.
So I'm guessing they're not going to be on your overall ballot.
Oh God, no, not even close. No.
Okay.
If I never had to watch Dangerous Tekkers wrestle another tag team match again, I'd be perfectly content with that. They're a name on the card at this point, and I just kind of take a deep breath and sit through the match.
I love them, but I can't disagree with you more on that one, I guess. But I've always loved Tai Chi. Match of the year. For me, it's Okada Naito. Don't think I'll be surprising any of my listeners when I say that, both overall and in New Japan. Hiromu Despy, a very close second. I mean, only the second match I gave 5 stars to all year long. anywhere, and they're both these New Japan matches. So those would be my 1 and 2, both in New Japan and overall. Joel, I'll start with you this time. What do you have here for match of the year?
It's very difficult to pick between those two matches you just mentioned, but I think just being there in the building live at the Tokyo Dome to see Naito versus Okada tips it into first place for me, because I go to a lot of football. Well, used to go to a lot of football matches, and I've been to some big matches, Arsenal matches, where Arsenal score an important goal and the crowd erupts. They're going wild. You see people jumping up and down, waving their hands in the air. It was exactly the same in the Tokyo Dome on January 5th when Naito pinned Okada. People were jumping up and down, hugging each other, cheering, and it was just an incredible moment. And I think that gives it the edge for me over Hiromu Despi. I'm
going to regret not going to that for the rest of my life. I forgot that you went to it. So I am very, very jealous. But, Damon, what do you have here for a match of the year?
Well, 2 seats over, or 1 seat over. I think I was sitting next to you. My wife was kind enough to sit on a little bit over. Was me. And
you were awake this time.
And I wasn't drunk. Yeah, I was under strict rules of 1. Even with the beer vendors walking down the aisle many times, and my puppy dog eye saying, "Can I get one?" and the hand, no. It was a moment. It was, and I've never been a part of something like that. And it's weird because the Tokyo Dome is that, like when Okada pinned Naito, and everybody walking into that building thought Naito was walking out with that title, and then everybody just staring at each other like, what in the fuck just happened here? It was similar, but in reverse, where again the Korakuen, Sumo Hall, I've never seen a reaction like that live, where just as Joel described, people jumping up and down as if a big goal was scored, or a last-second shot was made, or a walk-off home run. It was amazing, and I'll never forget looking at Joel, in that moment. That being said, I witnessed something that I think was pretty amazing just the other week. In that it was a story that, for a fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I talked about this, the fact that even the match itself was fantastic, but as you learn more and more and remember, like, oh yeah, that did happen. Oh yeah, that thing. And Joel's description last week, I got to give him a shout. Joel's description of this match and the history behind it, going back to the dojo days and Mexico, and leading up to the match that we saw, just an it is what makes me a pro wrestling fan. Yes, I've seen many matches that have been spectacular and physically just amazing. I don't think I've ever been witness to a match that just had the deep storyline that this had, that wasn't shoved in your face. If you wanted to dive deep, you can. There's plenty to sink your teeth into. Or you could parachute right in and enjoy a fantastic pro wrestling match. And to me, that is just an amazing accomplishment in 2020.
So you're talking about Desperado Hiromu, right? I don't know.
That is correct.
I don't know if you ever said the match, so I just wanted to make sure. So that is your match of the year, then?
My match of the year.
There you go. Joe, what do you think?
I swore it was going to be Girls of Destiny Fin Juice that he was talking about.
I figured it was, but I just wanted to say for the people listening at home who might be like, well, which match is he talking about?
I swear, that David Finlay really did it for me.
Yeah. You never know, Joe. You never know.
I'd like to be different and creative, but there's no reason to be. It's got to be Naito Okada for all the reasons that everybody else said. Plus, it was just a great match. There's really no other way to go with it, I think. So that's my pick.
Where do you think it'll be on your overall ballot?
It's going to be close. There's a couple other matches, but the moment might put it over the top. There's a big advantage when I rank out my matches for how important the match was. I do think that matters, and I It doesn't mean that you have to be a main event on one of the biggest shows of the year to be a match of the year, but it's definitely an advantage when you're weighing matches against each other.
Yeah.
So it's just that, like, Walter and Ilya Dragunov from NXT UK was one of the best matches I've ever seen in my life. It was on NXT UK in front of 0 fans. I mean, that has to be a factor when you're weighing it against a Tokyo Dome main event, Naito's crowning moment. The match was fucking incredible. You have that great story and history behind it. So all things being equal, you've got to go with Naito Okada in a situation like that. So I have a couple other matches that I'm considering and I'm mulling for my overall match of the year. The Takeshi Sugiura versus Go Shiozaki match that just happened. I went the full 5 on that, and I think that's one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. So in such a terrible year with COVID and clap crowds and no crowds, I've seen 3 or 4 matches that, to me, are all-time Pantheon matches. So I do think it could be overcome, the circumstances that we're in. But this match didn't have to deal with any of that. It happened before COVID, and it happened in a full dome, and it had the great moment, and it was a great match. So it's easily the New Japan match of the year, and it will probably be my overall match of the year, although I am not cementing that yet, setting it in stone.
Rich, what do you have?
I know we're a little short on time here, so I'll just go pretty quickly. It's the same match you guys have as well, Okada and Naito. I do want to revisit Okada and Ibushi because in the time that it was happening on the 4th or whatever, it was like, holy shit, what an incredible match that was. And I think it has been in large part lost to time because then the next day, Okada and Naito comes, and then that's good. And then the fact that January was 37 months ago definitely feels like it's hard to remember that. Oh yeah, that match was also really, really damn good. So I obviously want to revisit that match, but I think it's going to be, there's almost no question that it's going to be Okada and Naito as probably my overall match of the year and without a doubt my New Japan match of the year.
All right, so let's, like you said, we're short on time. We still got to get through questions, so I'm going to go through these last 2 categories quickly. Best feud. For me, I have Dangerous Tekkers and Golden Aces as number 1. I just thought that was, as far as telling a story through your matches with that Tanahashi, Ibushi having to carry Tanahashi storyline and even the will he turn on him storyline, which was really interesting. I thought it was a really interesting way to tell the story and make those Korikens interesting, and the build was really fun. So that's my clear number 1 overall and in New Japan. And my number 2 is Naito and Kenta, because that moment where Kenta jumped him at the end of the dome was great. All the interviews are great. The match, I thought, at New Beginning really delivered. So those are my top 2, both in New Japan and overall. Rich, what do you think for best feud?
Honestly, I don't know if there's a feud in New Japan that really resonated with me the entire year, which might be a big reason why I'm kind of down on the company throughout the year as well. I think there's a lot of little feuds, and a lot of them were earlier in the year, like Moxley and Suzuki I thought was really, really cool. Like you mentioned, Naito and Kenta was really, really cool. I don't know that I have, unfortunately, I feel I don't want to cop out and give a no answer, but it's I guess it's one of those. I guess it's like Kenta and Naito, but the last half of the year, there was really nothing that I felt was like, to me, when this question came up, it's like, I don't. There's just not one that I would definitely say. So I guess by default, I'd say Kenta and Naito because that was super hot and super cool when it did happen. But that's probably my pick almost by default though, because it's just nothing else really clicks with me.
And you don't think it's gonna get on your overall ballot? I think
no, definitely not.
Joe?
I'm with Rich. I really don't know where to go with this. How about Kenta and Moxley, with Kenta just constantly talking shit to him? That's a lot of fun. I mean, honestly, other than that, maybe Danny Limelight versus Rocky Romero.
That's a good feud. That's a great feud on New Japan Strong.
It's the 3 people.
Does anyone else think it's weird that Danny Limelight it constantly beats Rocky Romero? Isn't that bizarre? A weird shift in hierarchy for a guy who's not even on the roster to be beating a full-time roster member left and right.
Joel's our resident Strong reviewer.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. I haven't watched the show in 2 months, so I can't really tell you. But that's interesting.
If other patterns are to be followed, then I guess we can expect to see Danny Limelight in NXT anytime soon.
Right. Well, yeah. Unfortunately, because Moxley wrote our ebook, he is 100% leaving, never coming back to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and probably signing again with WWE because that's unfortunately we have a very.
Does he even have enough matches to get a segment in the yearbook?
He's going to get, so there's certain guys that we give, even if because if we have our under 5 section where if you're under 5 matches, you get put to a different section, but we have rare exceptions. Obviously this year, someone like a Jericho, who I think played a significant role in Wrestle Kingdom, he'll get a full profile, and Moxley will get a full profile as well. Even though
Liger.
And Liger, of course, will get a full profile too. So there's certain guys that get up there, but next year's gonna be tricky if he doesn't wrestle in the company. But I mean, he's still the champion and still in a few prominent spots. But
the U.S. title, what a belt. Damon, anything for best feud?
I mean, look, as everyone has said, it's been a tough year when it comes to that. The Kenta moment itself was pretty great. I mean, people were running to the aisles to scream at him. So that was something that I'll take to my grave. Just as Joe, if Joe's going by default on Techers, I'm going by default on this feud with Kenta and Knight.
Joel, what do you think?
I'm tempted to say Hiromu Despi, but it was so short and sort of self-contained with the two matches at the tail end of the year. I'm not sure that I can pick that.
Well, there's the junior tag matches too.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, okay. Well, I think that deserves a hat tip. And also, I'm not trolling, but I enjoyed the Naito Evil feud. It got a bit long in the tooth by the end, but I enjoyed the matches more than most. I loved the story between them, and there was some, great payoffs to it, like Naito getting that big moment at Jingu Stadium. There's a lot of bad blood going into it with the history between them. So I want to give Naito Evil some love as well.
It's funny you mentioned that because it's I think the only feud this year so far to get best and worst votes in the Omakase polls. It's definitely gotten at least one best feud vote. I think maybe two, and it's gotten 2 worst feud votes too. So there you go. But there's best feud. All right, the last category, best major show. Joel, you can kick us off here. What do you think for the best major show of New Japan's 2020?
I will go with Wrestle Kingdom Night 2, just because it had that incredible moment at the end. Just superlative pro wrestling match. I really enjoyed the Tanahashi Jericho match a lot more than I thought I was going to. I'm trying to remember what else was on that card. But
Goto Kenta.
I'll go for Kenta. That was good. I liked Jay White versus Ibushi. I thought that was a good match. Which tag was that? The heavyweight tag match on that night?
Yeah,
or was it the junior tag title match?
I think it was heavyweight.
Yeah. So and of course Liger's retirement, his final match as well. That was very special.
Damon?
Yeah, that was my pick for all the reasons. I don't think I've enjoyed a pro wrestling show live as much. Like, I might not have had as much rah-rah cheer moment at this show, but to me, Dash was the last show that I was at, and to see Liger get the ceremony and the tossing and all. I mean, I don't want to. It was emotional. I'm not going to lie, and I think the best day of the year is the Dome, and standing outside the Dome, getting my balls busted for not handling myself very well in night one, and just seeing everybody, and then the show. How can I not?
And don't forget your sukiyaki lunch as well.
Can I ask you, are you guys going to go in 2022? Because I think I'm going to go finally. Because this made me I keep putting it off. I'm just I'm not going to miss another Dome if they let me go.
I mean, if everything works out financially and all that, yeah, I don't see why not. I got a bar I got to pay for. I'm out of the fucking bar. So. But yeah, I mean, if sitting here now, yeah, I mean, I just pencil me in.
But I don't know about Joe with the baby. Can you still go, Joe?
Yeah, I don't think the baby is an obstacle to it. I guess if it would just be a question of would I have to quarantine on the way in,
right,
and the way out? That's the big question mark.
Yeah,
and we're gonna get the baby a fake ID anyway, so she can drink.
There you go. Okay, Joe, best major show.
Thought night 1 was a little deeper, maybe, but I'll go with night 2. There's no other contender other than one of those two shows, I think.
I have a different pick too. I will say.
I don't have a different pick, but I definitely have a different one that I can bring up. Okay. So
yeah, so I mean, I'll go with night 2 for all the reasons everybody else said, even though I think night 1 may have been a little deeper.
Rich?
So I am actually my pick would be night 1. I thought the last 4 matches or at least definitely the last 3, and I enjoyed the US Texas Deathmatch thing as well. But the last 3 matches, you got Hiromu and Will, Naito and Jay White, which I thought was pretty damn good, and then Okada and Ibushi is like a pretty damn good run of final 3 matches you can have. And I think those 3 peak a little bit higher than night 2, despite the fact that night 2 obviously has that culmination. But so that would be my vote. But I do want to put a special shout out for G1 Climax night 13. That's when you got Will versus Taichi, you got Ibushi versus Minoru Suzuki, you got Okada versus Shingo, and you also have a really, really good Jeff Cobb versus Ishii match on that night 13 as well. So that to me was the best of the G1 Climax nights. I'm not going to vote for it, but one that I think definitely deserves some consideration at least.
Okay, so my pick, actually, my overall pick for New Japan is actually New Beginning in Osaka, because I thought the Naito Kenta main event, Moxley Suzuki, Ryu Lee, and Hiromu. I loved all 3 of those matches. And then I thought even the undercard tags on that show were like weirdly really good. So that was my pick for New Japan, which is like 3rd place overall for me. I didn't love either night of Wrestle Kingdom quite as much as you guys did, I guess, because both nights, one of the major matches didn't hit for me was like Tanahashi Jericho in night 2. I didn't love as much as some people. And the White Naito match, weirdly, I was more down on than a lot of people, I feel like, which obviously pretty rare for me for a Naito match. But yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at. I'm at New Beginning in Osaka as my New Japan best major show. Joel might have to leave us shortly, but if he does, then
I might have to as well.
Okay.
So we can get things going quickly.
Okay, because all we got left to do is the questions. So let me see how many of these we can get through.
And half of them are trolls, anyways.
I was going to say, there's a few questions I can skip.
You just probably ignore like 4 or 5 of them. So,
there's a few questions I can skip here for sure that we already covered. So let me go through these. First on Twitter, Ed from Pop Van Dam says, basically he said, if you're running New Japan 2021, do you stick with Gedo as booker, hoping he finds his groove again, or do you ditch him for someone else and try a new vision? I had to bring up this question because, first of all, it is hilarious to me that people hate Gedo now as much as I did like January 4th, 2018. So I'm very amused by that now I am a Gedo apologist compared to some of these people. Second of all, yes, I would stick with Gedo. What the fuck are you talking? Like it's just, even in a year where I think people where he did some bad things, I think there's enough good stuff here, especially with the O-Khan and like the booking of the Empire and stuff. Like, I don't want to fucking switch bookers. I want to see where things are going to go. I don't know. Does anyone disagree? Anyone want to turf Gedo?
No, the track record, like a 10+ year track record of pretty fucking solid booking. I think I'll give him another year if he wants. You know what I mean? I think gets a little rope here. So no, I am not jettisoning Gedo and giving the book to whoever, and insert random name here. Yes, I'm not letting. Yeah, right. Well, I don't know. Hold on a minute.
I just threw out an old guy.
Stay, so. Yeah, I'm trying to think of an old guy who'd want it. I don't think Tenzon's ass wants it. He's like, get out of here. I don't want to deal with this shit.
Anyone want to turf Gedo? No?
Okay. The only thing I will say is that in the history of pro wrestling, bookers get burnout and bookers lose ideas. And you've seen it throughout the history of pro wrestling. And that is not to say that I would, show him his walking papers at this point. But again, you can only be so creative. I'm sure he has a nice support system to bounce ideas off of, and he's the final say in all of this. But we're not getting rid of him anytime soon.
No, Gedo and that team, and he does have that team, and Dick Togo's been added to that team. And look, when you have the track record of identifying and then getting over stars the way that they do there, why would you make a change now when this is like a very vital period in getting the next wave over?
Right.
You've got Tanahashi's done. Okada has already had his big run, and he's got some years left, but his big run is behind him. Naito is in his late 30s. It's time for the next generation. We got to get the O-Khans and the Will Ospreays and the Evils and the Sonatas and the Hiromus and the next wave of people over and Jay White. I don't think Jay White's best run has happened yet, not even by a long shot. So this is not the right time to make a move. My personal sensibilities and me not enjoying what has gone down, I can't assess bookers that way. I have to assess them on Are they the right people for the job, and are they best for business, regardless of whether it's aesthetically pleasing to me? So, no, they'd be insane to make a booking change right now.
I know you said that WWE should hire Gedo recently. I mean, I saw that tweet.
I was being kind of tongue-in-cheek, but at the same time, I mean, if you really want to fix what ails them is star creation.
Yeah.
Who has identified and gotten over stars better than, Gedo and his team?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Andrew Stewart says, all other things being equal, do you think people's opinions on the year would be different if Naito had successfully defended the title against Evil? I think for sure they would. The question, I guess, would be that's basically how much of what the year turned out to be is to a lot of fans is because of Evil. But, for sure a lot of Western fans would have liked it better, I think, if Naito had retained. But I don't know if anyone has any other thoughts on that.
No, I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, it depends what, is Naito retains and then Evil does. I mean, it depends what your plan. If your plan is Evil just, maybe turns on him and then loses and that's where you go, then I think there's definitely a different, but, there's no doubt, at least for me and for many others, that, Evil ascending to the top and then, having multiple main events and multiple matches that were, booked the way they were, definitely bogged down the year. So yeah, it all depends what those next steps were going to be. If you were still going to push Evil, I don't know, maybe it is almost the same. But if it was a turn and then he loses and then he just kind of has to work his way back up, then no, I think there's definitely no doubt that this year would have been received better and thought of better. It's impossible to know. I mean, it's not just defeating Naito. It's then what followed after that as well. And I can't tell you what in a perfect world what would have happened with Evil. That would have made me, I don't know. I don't know what those next steps were. So, but I assume mostly that, it wouldn't have been received without Evil beating Naito.
Yeah, I think if Evil were put over, strong, you didn't have interference and all that. But I think that was the biggest thing.
Yeah, honestly, Evil could have went in there and just beat his ass and fucking was like, oh shit, Evil's good. Evil's great. Evil just beat Naito. I have no issues with that. That is a great way to book Evil.
Well, I have less issues with that, but I wouldn't say I have no issues with that. It's still Evil at the end of the day, and I think he's very hit or miss for me. But I understand that train of thought for sure.
Andrew Rich from Music of the Mat, of course, on this very network. Says,
what? Who's that guy?
by the end of 2021, will the Great-O-Khan have won a singles championship? Yes. He will win the Never title in 2021. That's my prediction. Anyone want to disagree, agree?
I think he'll win a title. I don't know if he'll specifically win a singles title.
Right, it could be tag.
Yeah, because their programs are long, and it seems like Cobb is programmed into that instead of O-Khan. So that eats up half the year alone. And then, who knows after that? And I don't think O-Khan is a contender for they're not going to split the big title, and he's obviously not a contender for it yet. So maybe not a singles title, but I could see him winning a title for sure.
Yeah, they're just hard to come by. I mean, when you look at the amount, I mean, in normal years and most years, it's not a lot of guys, get singles titles in this company.
Can I throw it out here? He could win the very prestigious KOPW.
God. Hopefully not. Dear God, let's hope not. If that happens, then yes, Gedo, he's out. Tenzan gets the book. give Tenkoji the book.
Does a New Japan Cup count?
Oh yeah, that could be it. If you want to count that, I think he's
and I think a lot of times what New Japan will do is they'll supplement. Hey, we don't have a whole lot of singles titles to give guys, but we have these big opportunities, these big tournaments, these big title matches, that sort of stuff. So he'll be in that mix, no doubt. I'm like Joe. I can't definitively say he's definitely going to be a singles champion because they're not easy to come by in this company. They're very, very protective of who wins those big singles titles.
Max Gallup over on the Super J-Cast Discord says, has Will Ospreay regressed in 2020? Was his 2019 just overrated? Or am I letting my dislike of him as a person affect how I feel about his performance?
I can't tell you how to feel. If you have an issue with his outside the ring stuff,
right? Yeah.
It can definitely impact you. So I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong or you're right, but I think look, I don't think anybody is going into this Dome season and not circling Okada Ospreay as being something that I need to watch. I will be watching, and I think that is, to me, if we're talking about match quality, that's what I'm circling.
Yeah, and I will just jump in quick, and then I'm sure Joe will have a response here, is I think his New Japan year maybe didn't hit at the highest of highs, and that's also with, not having the entire summer. But I mean, elsewhere, if you were watching the RPW shows, the Rev Pro shows, some really, really good work in there. A great match with Zack Sabre Jr. to me earlier in the year as well. So yeah, I don't think he really regressed. I think he just had way less opportunities to have great matches. But when he had those opportunities, I thought they were pretty good. And I'm like Damon too. It's like, well, if you feel that way, you feel that way. There's nothing I can tell you to that. But like as far as like, is he regressing? I think that's honestly, it's kind of ludicrous if you watch everything that he does across the world.
I will say and I've actually examined this myself a lot, because I do think his G1 this year specifically was like, I thought it was a lot worse than his G1 last year. But he's never been one of my big favorites anyway. But like, as far as just comparing year to year in the G1, I thought his G1 was way better last year. So I have examined, like I've been examining this myself. Am I letting his outside the ring issues and all that stuff affect how I think of his matches? And I don't know is the answer. So it's a very complex question, I guess.
Hey, look, I mean, listen, I'm the biggest Smiths fan there is on this podcast that you're listening to right now. Doesn't mean I'm the biggest Morrissey guy either.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Oh, Jesus, yeah, right.
Joel, do you have anything to add?
I think undoubtedly people not liking who he is affect how they perceive him as a wrestler. There's no question. I mean, I think that's obvious. In terms of whether he has declined, he's in 4 of my top 10 New Japan matches of the year. The Tokyo Dome match against Hiromu, the Zack Sabre Jr. match from February 2nd, and then they followed that up with an even better match in Rev Pro in the rematch. And then I thought he had 2 of the best G1 matches overall against Tomohiro Ishii and Willow and Shingo. So I thought he was phenomenal in New Japan this year. Now, he didn't have the same workload he had last year, and I think his 2019 is one of the best in-ring years a wrestler has ever had. So, no, I don't think he was as good as 2019, but he just didn't have the reps. I mean, last year, in 2019, he was in every tournament. New Japan Cup, G1, Best of Super Juniors, and he crushed it in all of them. And I will also say this. Just yesterday, I submitted my top 50 wrestlers of the year for a different project I'm involved in. And Will Ospreay is my wrestler of the year overall in the world. So the second part of that question, no, I don't think he's regressed at all. I think he's still the best wrestler in the world. So, Joe, tell me, how is Bill Apter? Well, I would love to work with Bill. Are you kidding me? I would revel in that. What does Bill Apter even do these days? What's he involved?
I don't know. Joel, did you want to add anything about Ospreay?
I can answer the Bill Apter question. He was at One Wrestling, and now I think he's at some weird ass site that I've never heard of, and I went to, and it looked like literally some guy made it like 10 minutes ago. So I think they're not going well for Bill. But that's a shame. That's a shame.
Maybe
we should I'll slide in those DMs, see if he wants to do some work here.
Maybe Joel's not here. I don't know, but unless he wants to. Oh, okay.
I am here. I'm about to unplug my headphones because I'm holding my daughter at the moment. But
okay.
I think Ospreay has regressed slightly. I just feel his matches of the G1 this year were a lot more sort of getting your shit in, more self-indulgent. Maybe that was playing into the heel turn that was coming up. And yeah, I accept that. My dislike of him personally is probably affecting that to some extent, but there's just a lot more of his stuff in the G1 this year annoyed me, whereas I thought last year he was incredible. So, there you go.
One of those things I can blow Joe's mind with, the Ospreay Ishii match he mentioned has gotten multiple votes for worst match of the year in my Patron Awards. So, people,
honestly, all that tells me is people have terrible taste. I can't account for other people's taste. That match was great.
I'm sorry, I lied. I only got one. I thought
people
I got
like
two.
what they like.
The other thing he mentioned too, that Max on the Discord, which we don't have to all go through, but I just wanted to mention it because I think it's a great point. He said, how great has Suzuki-gun been since the restart? And they have been an awesome unit in 2020. I mean, just like between the Techers, Desperado, Suzuki had a great year. I mean, if I was going to do like unit of the year rankings, they might be my unit of the year, which, wouldn't be the case in past years. So thought they did have a great year. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything on that, but anyway, let me say here about the final questions. Gerard, also a Voice of Wrestling contributor, said, if Shingo is peaking in the booking at never title level, do you think New Japan is leaving money on the table? I think, Joe, you would say yes.
Yeah, I don't have a long-winded answer. I think absolutely they can get more out of him, but I don't think they're ever going to choose to.
Rich, do you want to add anything? Oh, okay. Rich went mute, so...
Sorry, now I was not on mute, and then I thought I was on mute, but no, I'm on mute. Okay. No, I do. I think they are leaving money at the table, but it's kind of a moot point at this. You know, if they do it, they'll do it. But I've seen no evidence so far that they're going to do it. So it's kind of just like, I don't know. Yeah, but no doubt, I think he's capable of it and could be important. But they clearly see him at a certain level, and you know, there's no point in fighting it at this point. That's where he is, and that's fine. Like, I think he could be a great contributor to that division, similar to what Tomohiro Ishii did many years before him, and what some other guys did as well, where they kind of peak at the never, and that's fine. That I'm okay with that now, if that's what it's going to be.
Damon, Joel, anything you want to add?
I mean, I think the one thing is, I mean, you can easily elevate him, warm him up whenever you need to, and then have him be the anchor for that title. So, yeah, I mean, I would agree. It's not in the plans. I don't necessarily see it, but it would be very easy for New Japan to do. Let's put that.
All right. So Joel had to leave us a couple seconds early, but that's basically it. That's all I have for you guys. Only went about 7 minutes over the 2 hours, so not too bad. But yeah, the other questions, I think we pretty much covered them all. So Joe, Rich, anything else you want to plug here before we wrap it up? You kind of plugged everything at the start, but...
Patreon.com/Voices of Wrestling. $1, $5, and $10 tiers for bonus content if the 3-hour flagship isn't enough for you.
There you go.
And then I'll just jump in with, obviously, the New Japan ebook, as I said at the top, voicesofwrestling.com. I forgot to mention the pricing structure that we have for that. You can download it for free. We have a free option. We also have a name-your-own-price option, so if you want to put $1 on it, if you want to do my recommended $1,000, you can also do that as well. $5,000, whatever you want to do. I think it allows you to pay whatever you'd like for the ebook, but we'll have a suggested price on there, so you can choose that as well. And then the Amazon Kindle store, it's available too. $100,000 per the nurse. There we go. Don't let if you pay $100,000 for our book, the nurse no longer has to work COVID.
That has to be. See, no, she made her first. She's making her first Omakase appearance too.
Does she get an award ballot now?
She can go ahead and vote if she wants to. You can give her the leg.
You get a Wrestling Omakase award ballot now. So congratulations. It'll be in the mail. So the email.
I want it actually to come in the mail. I want it to
You got that, John?
Yeah. I will say she was vicious in Among Us. She killed me. So I have to say, wanted to mention that.
But anyway, yeah. Also, the like we said, Amazon Kindle store available as well, and that'll be a set price. But yeah, you can download it for free, and there are many people that do that as well. But we should note that any money that is made from the book gets split among contributors too. So if you like the book, you enjoy it, consider putting a few bucks on it. And there's a way too where you can download it for free, and then if you like it, you can go back and re-download it for $5 or whatever. If you're like, oh man, these guys put a lot of work in this, it's definitely worth it. But yeah, just let it know that it's not going in Joe and I's coffers. It's being split among the contributors. So if there's an essay you really like, if there's art you really like, if there's a lot of stuff you really like, definitely consider putting a couple bucks, whatever you can afford. Obviously, in a year that's pretty tough, but it'll help everybody that contributed to the book make a little bit of money at the end of the year as well. So
whatever you think the work was worth, how about that?
Yeah, if you thought it sucked, then fucking download it for free. You know what I mean? But we're pretty confident you'll get a pretty good value for it, no matter what price you decide.
There you go, Damon.
First of all, this motherfucker John Carroll gets an all-star cast, myself included, with Joe Landon, Rich Craich, Joel Abraham, and a run-in from the goddamn nurse.
This is really a who's who. Yeah, this is.
How in the hell? I mean, that's like Bo Jackson, walking to the All-Star game, showing up and hitting a home run.
There you go.
Look, Bo Jackson. How long ago was that? Right?
Nice. Yeah, that's a great reference. Are we going to talk Bo Jackson now? We can go on for another 4 hours if you want. But
I think Nicole also opened and closed the door at one point. That was her run-in. I don't think she said anything though.
Well, look. Here's the thing. I'm terrible at plugs. I know you can follow us at the Super J-Cast on the Twitter. I know we have our year-end awards. So if you hate all of our opinions, you can have your voice be heard and vote for who you want. Certainly don't hit us up on Twitter because we don't give a shit.
There it is. Yes.
And lastly, let me just say how absolutely proud I am of to be involved with Voices of Wrestling, because the Super J-Cast and formerly the Purecast would not have happened if it wasn't for the inspiration given by Voices of Wrestling, number one. Number two, what a great get, that book. John Moxley? Come on. It's fucking great. Yeah, listen, we don't whip out the Bobos here. You know what I mean? Like, we get some big names for you. And some of the writing is some of the most thought-provoking and interesting and fun and entertaining things that you'll read all year about New Japan Pro Wrestling. I cannot recommend this book highly enough, just because every year I download it and I remember things and the features and the profiles. It's an amazing piece of work, and they bust their ass doing it, let's be honest. So throw these guys a couple bucks and show your appreciation for the hard work that they do. Again, Super J-Cast is the podcast. You know that already. But thank you, gentlemen, for spending some time. I was really looking forward to doing this. And one of the key factors was, listen, I need Craich and I need Lanzo on this thing too. And you guys made it happen. So I had a blast. Thank you, John, for putting it all together. And yeah, let's enjoy some Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun, Wrestle Kingdom. That'll be our next free episode while I am talking here, because I don't even know how this... Oh, no, actually, no, the year-end awards are next. So up next on the Wrestling Omakase will be the Wrestling Omakase year-end awards. So that'll be our next episode, which hopefully more people will have gotten about them by then. But, it's like 2 weeks away as I'm recording this. It's a little weird to plug it. But yes, that'll be the next episode, the year-end awards. You can follow us on Twitter at WrestleOmakase. Wrestling, of course, would not fit. Please subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/WrestlingOmakase. As I mentioned, that'll be the only place to get our same-day Wrestle Kingdom coverage on January 4th and 5th on YouTube. So that'll be our first, I guess, Patreon instant reaction, similar to what you guys do. And I'm sure I'll get some guests lined up for that. I just haven't even started thinking about it yet. But yeah, so that'll be coming up in the next couple weeks. In the meantime, thanks all of you for coming on here, and Joel too, who is not hearing this because he has a baby, but he had to take, had to run off with. But definitely appreciate all of you making time in your schedules, which your busy schedules. I'm not being sarcastic at all, because everybody's busy this time of year. So thank you all for making time to come on with me. Had a great time, and I hope you enjoyed it as well listening at home. So thank you as always for listening, and I will see you next time.